I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, everybody's ready and situated and has the pen out and is done saying things.
Very negative about
Yeah.
that. So I did send Cindy. Yeah.
But if not, we can listen to your chatter, that's fine. Are you guys good? Shall we get going?
We're very good.
We're in the middle of something.
I know, that's what I'm asking. Should we listen to you or?
Excuse us.
Sorry.
Okay, like,
All right.
okay, now it's 3 o'clock.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
We'll be done in a little bit.
That's right. I'm on my time.
5-year strategic vision.
Well, without Bree, I guess I can start us.
Okay.
Afternoon, everyone. So for the 5-year strategic vision, you all have been working on that with Steve. I believe it is on this evening's agenda for approval.
Your skin burning
A little bit. Well, the fact that the door didn't start on fire is a good sign.
It's really good. It is, yeah.
Are you gonna share a screen or is that what we're trying to do?
Yes.
They should have a big button they put on computers now. It's like red or orange or something for share screen.
Absolutely.
For all the rest of us that aren't under 30 years old. I mean, it can't be that hard, but there should be like a big green button that just
And it should just automatically connect.
boom, it connects with everything.
Just automatically connect. Just,
You got somebody outside shooting.
well, you might need a password, right? But at least it's connected and not trying to find the network, whatever you guys. There we go.
Okay. So Bree has worked with Steve on consolidating everything that you've all been talking about for the past couple months and then put it into the unified version for you all and for the public. And I don't know, do you guys want to go through everything? Do you remember everything already?
I'm not remembering a thing.
Okay.
How much time do we have for this?
15 minutes.
15, 1-5?
1-5.
Yep. So I think maybe instead of going, if you guys have reviewed it and all that, maybe we can do hit points that you guys are concerned with or want to talk about or whatever, instead of doing a sentence by sentence class read.
Now we can start.
Yes.
So we hold up the beautified version and I have the appendix as well. And then Mayor suggested any points that council has that they want to talk about or discuss before adoption this evening.
I agree.
Hi everyone. Got lost in the sauce writing.
It's all good.
These are all things that you guys discovered over your various retreats, going through what was in the last 2020 to 2025 plan, and then seeing what needed to be updated, adjusted, edited, and then I just formatted it. So I think it's in a good spot for tonight, but definitely open to any questions that you all would have for tonight.
So the vision is part of the strategic plan, it's the first page or something, is that what we're doing?
You're doing the whole thing.
I know, but the vision is, the strategic plan is behind it, right?
Yes, so in terms of like the individual sort of like action plan and priorities, that since it's something that is being intended to be updated quarterly, we didn't want to print something that is gonna be needing updated every quarter. So our approach to that this time instead was having that QR code, which will link to this appendix, so that the plan itself that has the vision and values, that sort of like evergreen stuff, will be in the printed document, whereas the appendix that is being updated quarterly will be online, to give us that flexibility to have printed versions for people without, having a bunch of copies that are out of date.
And
then
the,
everybody does it when they got it.
the vision replaced the mission.
The mission's in there too.
Mission's still in?
It's further down.
Didn't we have a discussion about that? Should we call it mission or vision or anything? Didn't we talk about that?
There's the strategic vision and then the mission.
If we
is
did, I
right
wouldn't have
below.
cared.
Okay, and me neither probably, because I don't remember clearly. I'm sorry?
You're fine.
Yeah, no, I know, I see it.
Okay.
It's good.
I just didn't know if you wanted to peek at it.
No,
Make
it's
sure
So
okay.
I
it's
ask a
still-
question about, on the mission section. I'll ask Tim and Bree, particularly since you are employees, what does it mean to challenge the status quo? What does that connotation have to you?
I think that it mostly reflects like we don't intend to rest on laurels, like we always want to be improving on what we're trying to do. We always want to be moving towards the best possible outcome for our residents and our team as we can.
And continuous improvement, continuous learning, not accepting the answer that this is the way we've always done it.
And making sure that what we're doing still serves.
How about it?
And what if
How
we're-
about a specific example?
Good question. So I think there's a lot of things in, day-to-day work that, things work and they work, excuse me, just fine. But there's a way to improve that process. So it could be, from onboarding new employees, really setting the tone for culture, how our organization operates. It could be, like recently, when you all gave the head nod to change the landfill hours. That came from landfill staff saying, this isn't an effective use of our time. There's a better way we can do this. Some things we can't change, right? Our bid process and going through and doing all of that. But there's, things that we could put into our bids that might make something a little different or innovative or a different way of doing it, right? Like an engineered plan will end up being an engineered plan, but perhaps there's other ways we can think through problems that we encounter.
I'm just wondering, and again, you're the PR person, challenge the status quo. And I'm an old guy, I don't like the status quo either, but that seems to be ambiguous, could be confrontational, could be, we don't like the way things are, and a lot of people, and a lot of what you said is good. Is there a way, or should we look at a way to say that more on what you said? We empower employees to innovate and improve.
Well, the next bullet is continuous improvement.
Yeah, so do we even need there? Or can we just leave it to innovate? I mean, I don't know. Innovate enough. Innovation, by definition, is a change in the status quo. I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm overreacting, I don't know what the rest of you think, but that little clause goes, wait, is that saying what we want to say, or does it matter?
I like it.
I was gonna say, I like it. I like it because to me, it's exactly that. It empowers people to not feel like they don't have a voice if they don't see things exactly the way they are.
Good.
Personally, I look at it and I go, if I read that, I'd be like, oh, that means I can speak up.
I like it all. The big thing is, how does it translate? You know, how does Steve and how do the department leaders and how do anybody who's in charge of somebody else translate that so that it means something to everybody? And that, you know, that's how well you think that works is part of what we're trying to endorse here.
That's a good question and good feedback. I think part of it is, one thing that we are working on now and will continue to work on, but you know, we do quarterly all staff calls led by Steve. So part of that will probably be, we'll be discussing this once after adoption, but then also talking about the city's vision and mission and our culture of feedback, feeling comfortable to provide feedback up and down, working through, you know, new ideas that could be big and scary, or new ideas are like, oh, why didn't we do it that way? So we are working on that actively. Part of that, Aaron, or Councilor Zelinski and Shatner did our community listens through the Chapman Foundation. We're starting to get more and more of our staff through that, and different professional development trainings through that, on supervisory trainings, management trainings, all of those kind of things to build that intentional culture.
I hope this helps.
It always does, having council's support and direction.
Okay, other questions, comments? No? Looks like we're good to go. It's consent tonight, right?
Yes, it's on.
Yes. Yeah.
Then did you want to talk about the appendix?
I think the only other thing is I think that Steve intends on talking through a little bit more of this with you guys. I mean, and certainly we'll be touching this every quarter. So the appendix is still to come. The more is living document. So it won't be the last time you see it.
Well, I think we have an early morning on the 5th February with this. It's called strategic planning, so I assume we're gonna rehash this one more time and make sure it's good. I don't know.
No, we're approving this.
Got the strategic goals there, I think, for the fifth.
Right. So we're not gonna redo this document, we're just gonna go over the appendix, go over the goals, and then make that a quarterly process. as I
No, we're
understand it.
approving the vision.
That's where the meat of this comes in, is are we actually doing something with it, or?
Yes.
We're just approving the vision, right? Not the plan tonight.
I believe
Is that the one and the same thing?
the appendix is
It's all.
Party.
part
Okay,
of the
then never mind. Yeah, then that's fine. All good. I guess we're approving.
with the intention that like the appendix is always like it's the living portion of the
Right.
document.
Right.
So the next, on the 5th of February.
I thought it was called out as a strategic planning
Strategic
session.
something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's going over.
Yeah, I don't know that was necessarily because we were dealing with this though.
Got it. Maybe it's a different strategy.
Following along the living document thing though, I remember reading a couple of things in the previous version that we were updating that had been listed as a priority that I don't think had been dealt with. So my question is, who audits this when we do the quarterly review to say, you know, there's something on that list that was a priority 3 years ago or 5 years ago that's still on the list and nothing has happened?
Isn't that what
So
Steve
not
colored codes for?
not just for following up, but actively making a decision, yes, that's not a priority anymore. Or yeah, we really need to deal with that.
Well, I think from the past 3 years that I've been here, every year we look at the strategic plan and do an update and pick out what has been done and maybe change priorities on you know, the temperature and things we gotta change.
When I think, and I don't know, you got different levels here, and I think at our breakfast meeting, we're gonna go over this strategic goal list, and Steve color codes them generally along what you're saying, right? This was important, it's green, yellow, or red, is it if it hasn't been done, do we get rid of it or does it need to move up? So I think maybe it's not as extensive a document, but it is a process that you color codes those. So we haven't updated, have they been done? Are they getting done or are they not done at all? And where should they be on that? Should they be boosted up or down on that list?
I guess my point was at least once a year, there's an opportunity.
More. Yeah.
Or more, I just remember once a year, there's an opportunity to revisit and adjust.
If it's not, Tim, it'd be nice to make sure that we get that, in for, to me, at minimum would be twice, and 3 or 4 wouldn't hurt. At least twice, though.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe part of this appendix, so the quarterly staff updates that you all receive, this will be part of that as well. Like if you've worked on it, you'll receive the update. If there's not work done on it, you'll receive the update. Why not? Those kind of things. So it will be a quarterly update.
I mean, in this document too, you'll see the third column is status. So as there's changes in there, that would also be reflected in the quarterly reflections that you guys are editing, rearranging your priorities, and then staff is able to articulate where those things, what movement has happened.
Sounds great.
Okay, anything else? No, see none? Okay, excellent, thank you guys.
I'm not sure.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm not, I guess my question more was about the administrative auditing of the process, because this goes on our website, and our objective with that is to have the community look at it. So if there's something on the list that was listed as a priority and hasn't changed, but nothing's happening, it looks like it's just checking the box kind of thing, right? It's not like it's a useful document. Case in point, because that's what I asked was for a specific example, and we've got the flock cameras coming up. I went through the police policy manual that's on our website, and the whole section about the flock cameras wasn't even in there.
I don't know if this is my topic, but
So my point was, somewhere in the process, we're not catching that everything stays up to date.
So do you feel like maybe it was never updated?
Well,
Like it was never added?
That's what I think, is that
And
since,
I'm flock cameras as part of the last strategic vision?
no, it's nothing to do with the strategic vision. It's my point about auditing the process and making sure that we're following through with our intentions. And that it's clear to everyone that we're following through
I
with our
think
intentions.
that what I'm hearing is like understanding like the workflow and roles of like who is doing what part of the process. No.
Sort of, is that there's a structured, who's responsible for making sure that that someone's holding us accountable for not having done something about it or not having updated.
Are you trying to draw a linkage between flock cameras and some strategic document?
No.
I think, and here's my other question, and I have a question, real quick, a clarifying question. Did flock cameras ever come before a city council, or was that just like a staff initiative? Because it would have been prior, like, you would have been in council.
I've never heard of it.
So that's what I'm saying, like, I think sometimes these things are like, it's an interdepartmental, we don't see every expense or every,
And
right?
I think what Ray is saying is he looked through the police code,
Right.
and that section about flock cameras that we had in our staff report was not on the
Oh,
website.
I see,
It was missing.
I'm sorry.
That's what I
Okay.
caught here.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Process so that the accountability
Yeah,
trail
got it.
is clear.
In other words, the website was not updated and not complete with all the policies in it.
Got it.
That's how I understood.
And so going forward with this document, the strategic plan appendix, you see updated January 2026. So now on a quarterly basis, so when Bree says this is a living document, next quarter, we go through our quarterly updates, all of that. This will then be, updated August or July, 2026. So you can see that this is status updated, or things are removed, or, even put in there like, at council direction, we're not doing this, or didn't run into funding. So that's the intent of this, is to be more engaged and have exactly what you're talking about.
Excellent. That's exactly what I was hoping for. And Bree, I guess this ends up falling on you, but it ends, that same process and accountability trail needs to go into everything that goes into our website. So department heads have to be keeping their information up to date. So, right? Good, thanks.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Let's move on. Let's do SharePoint site.
Okay. So a couple things. You all have a couple resources of, where to find or have information. You have your council packets and board view and civic clerk, our website, which we can talk about as part of this discussion. And then another option, should you all want to do that, is we created this council SharePoint. It's a Microsoft tool. It shares in the name. So for example, on this, it would be you all, and then, select members with senior staff that would have access to this site. So when you all ask for something, the last time you asked a department director for something, whatever it is, that would then could go and live here. And we'll show you how to bookmark it and have access to it all the time. But that everything here, so here what I put is the city council handbook. It applies to all of you. The work session topics, it's a live link, meaning you can edit it and change it in real time, and it's always there. That applies to all of you. Everything applies to all of you. And then, the 2025 budget amendments, because the other.
That's exciting. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Because the other tool you have is your email, where
Yeah.
you get a ton of stuff in there and you're like, I think Steve sent it, I think Tim sent it, I don't know. This is a place where we can put everything. It's not meant to fully, duplicate our website or duplicate board view and civic clerk, but it is another resource if you all would like that. And we can build it out further, whether it's by department or whatnot.
Right, so this is the same login as the civic clerk, same
Yes.
login as the Outlook, same login as everything, okay.
Yep.
Is this a place where comprehensive plan,
Yes.
climate action plan, evacuation, where all the plans can live? So we can at our leisure just go click and say, oh, I really want to read whatever
Yes.
plan, so this could be that place.
Yes.
Now, it's nothing to do with applications and current packets. They come, they stay in the packet, the presentation we get to see stay in the packet, they will never end up there. This is internal stuff.
Yep.
For us to access if we need it.
Correct.
Okay.
One-stop shop, hopefully.
Right. I like it.
But you said if we, say I have a request from a department head,
Mhm.
so in my little portion, those past requests or that information live there still?
So,
Or is
there's a couple ways we can do it. We can set up Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski folder.
Please call me Aaron. That's a lot of words.
Yeah.
A lot of syllables.
Alright, we can set up an Aaron folder, we can set it up by department. So generally, in theory, when you reach out to a department director and you ask for something, right, we should be BCCing all of council so you all have it. It's up to you then if you want to read it or that. The other way we can do that is you reach out to somebody for something, then they just upload it here. So maybe once a week, a couple weeks, you guys check this and you're like, oh, there's a new plan there.
Got it.
So you can have that.
Or we could just have it all there and then we can eliminate the step of reaching out. We could just look for it and go, oh, look, it's right here.
Yes,
Right, Mitchell?
So I don't like this.
Where is it?
I haven't shared it with you yet.
Okay.
So that's why we're having this discussion. If you want it, I'm happy to refine it, build it better, and have more resources there, so you have it, but.
Yeah, what don't you like?
So I don't like the extra work that we're asking people to do simply because we don't wanna go find it ourselves, right? All your plans are available to you today. They're on the website.
That is correct.
Email is a wonderful thing. You can search for it, you can save stuff onto your desktop, you can do all of those things.
So you think it's redundant?
It's incredibly redundant, and it also starts to jeopardize the concept of single version of the truth, right? So, gosh, is this a different version than what's on the website versus what was emailed to me? Which one is accurate? Yada yada. And then this could also become not abused, but it could become misused to the point where it is quotable. You know, we start having little conversations in here. You know, that becomes like, you know, open meeting rules and laws. I don't see the need for it. And I think there's already lots of solutions out there. We just have to become comfortable with what those are. And this could potentially become misused.
What about from your side, Tim? From the staff side, what are the advantages over what Mitchell said we already have? Are there significant advantages?
No, I tend to agree with you, but it is an additional resource. If it helps you in being more prepared, then I'm happy to do redundant work.
What prompted staff to offer this in the first place?
I think sometimes it's the, for example, the budget amendments. I think, several of you asked for them at that. I think Steve got them out and all that, but then you have one, but maybe not all of them in that, but you just want all of them. I just want all of them so I can look at all of them. So there's some of that. Our website is not the most friendly or navigatable, which we are aware of, and we are working on that. That's ideas we're working on in 26 of a website refresh and redesign and making it better, more user-friendly. But this was just a thought of perhaps this tool, if you all just have it bookmarked, and you know that you can click on board link, cogs.us, or this, you'll find it. Because we're not going to update the comp plan this year, so what's on the website and what's here will be the same. So it was just an opportunity if it does seem appealing to you all.
My initial inclination was very similar, that it feels like a company looking for a reason, and it feels potential clutter. It's different from its intended purpose to make it easy. If we now have 4 places to go, it feels more clutter than 3 places to go. Is there something about the other 3 places? Maybe there's something about Boardview that doesn't already do this.
No, it's all there, right? Everything you have is available through Boardview and through our website. It might take a couple clicks to get there.
I like the energy being spent on the website more than this, perhaps.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I've always found all of you guys to be so incredibly responsive. Like if any one of us is looking for something, it's right there.
I was thinking that this would be a place, I definitely have gone back and done a search on Boardview, because I'll remember some presentation or something that we had, pull it up, and I tried now, more recently, I put my notes in there so that I can go back and see my thoughts on that and have a digital record. What I was thinking is that for sometimes there's things that we have ongoing that like span multiple councils, and I was thinking that, that could be a resource where some historic, pertinent, so it's just almost like a digital reference that could be accessible to current, present, past councils, kind of thing, is what I was thinking. And so that's why I was like, oh, I kind of like that that would just be, I wouldn't necessarily need it to be updated all the time, but if there was something, so I could see the benefit of it if it's simple. I didn't necessarily envision it being interactive, so I didn't think that we'd have a concern of the open meetings, but
Cause we can make everything on here just read only, so you guys
Yeah.
can.
What's the effort you think will go into this if you have to put it together? Drop and drag and drop kind of thing? Yeah.
but I don't need it if you guys don't wanna do it.
Well, I just want to point, I just learned this, and maybe on the last one or not. Board view is searchable.
Yeah, that's what I just said, I
You guys know that.
I didn't know that.
that's what I just said.
I didn't know that.
What is that?
Board
I
view
know
is
it's searchable by
searchable.
me, but not, you know.
No, it's searchable. I'm being, are you guys just shitting me? Like it's.
I have no idea.
So
Yeah,
at the top of board view is a search, and I just searched for housing over all of 2025. And boom, boom, Canyon Vista.
Yeah.
Housing commission appointment, yeah.
I use that a lot.
Well, what if you wanna look at the
Because my
comp
memory
plan
is
really
crap.
quick? Board view isn't gonna help you.
Comp plan on the website.
I know it's not
And I
works.
can also look things that span back, you know, so I can look at things that happened before I was on city council, as long as it's in board view.
Which is good.
So
So
just
that's
real
why we
quick,
have to put the
we're
date
10
in
minutes
there.
behind, let's see if we can wrap this up, I don't think it's that big a deal, so. Ray and Dave, go ahead, Dave.
We can hold, we can.
I kind of like the idea. You know, I'm not sure if I totally get the interactive part of it, and I don't think, you know, I think it's a good point that we don't want something that can be construed as a meeting. So, but just having the information there where we can go to a spot like that. I'm kind of a dinosaur when it comes to some of this stuff, so for me that would work. If it's taking a whole lot of work and effort to do it, I can go look it up and find it. But there's been numerous times where I've gone to Steve or somebody and go, okay, I know this is here, can just point me in the right direction. But then that's me going to him taking time out to come back to me. If there was a place that, you know, it was all there.
If there was a place where it's all there, you're gonna have the same problem, because there's so much information.
That may be true.
So
Where is it on the SharePoint?
Well, I like the search,
I tend to,
and it has my notes, go ahead.
I tend to agree with Councilor Weimer, and specifically from my experience in trying to get maps updated.
You didn't know we did.
And the GIS information has so many different layers, so many different updates, that the people who administer that are so familiar with it and so quick to just add this base layer or add this, and the base map that they were starting from was still wrong. And the tendency to do that by trying to compartmentalize or by adding or making it easier, just the potential for having different documents in different places is too great, I think.
Okay,
And I'm
anything
good
else?
with it either way, but.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, if, it seems like head nod is a rather not.
Okay.
That's what I see, so
that's fine.
I thought it was a good idea, but indifferent, doesn't matter to me.
Okay. And then just real quickly, like I said, we are aware of our website issues, and Bree and I are working on that. So probably mid-year, you will see a lot more action and requests for feedback on.
Just when I'm starting to learn my way around this, when you can fix it on me.
It's
Like the grocery
so
store,
bad.
right?
It's so
Where's the
bad.
rice?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a
excellent.
lot on there.
Yes.
There
There's
is.
a lot.
Let's get to the state of the city.
Yay, we're getting close, we're 15, 16 days away, depending on how you count it. I think that this time was just to make sure that we're all on the same page as to like, we're there, what are y'all gonna be up to at the State of the City? So Marco and Aaron will have like quick things that they'll say at the top. Marco will do like a little intro, you'll help break us out into mini groups. The purpose for the rest of you is an opportunity for you to like stand side by side with your constituents and listen to what is being said, to sort of like hear what they're asking staff, what are the things that are floating to the top of mind. So after we have the short presentation in the beginning, we'll break out into small rotating groups of people, pods, however you want to describe it. Depending on how many people come, I have truly no idea how many people. I'm hoping, at least 50, at least 60. It'd be awesome if we had closer to 150 would be awesome, but,
Right.
We'll see.
Have you done RSVPs?
So far on RSVPs, we only have about 40.
Okay.
I
mean, that's not nothing.
It's not nothing. And we continue to put more press out and send more direct invites. The news release will go out
This is
here
the first one we've
shortly.
done.
Huh?
This is the first one we've done.
This is the first one we've done. Press continues, newspaper ads, et cetera, all ongoing. So hopeful that more people will start coming. Hopefully we don't have any bad weather or anything taking that day up. But I digress. Back to when we separate into our different groups. For the ease of simplicity, let's say we get 70 attendees, non-staff, non-counselors. Those 70 people would be broken up into 7 different groups with one of you in each of those groups with those people. So Mitchell is with his 10 residents, and Mitchell and his 10 residents rotate from these station to station together so that you get to know these 7 constituents really well. And then you guys will be able to report back in with each other. So you guys will all have an opportunity to go to every station as well as hear what your group is saying, doing, asking, is the intent.
Stations and topics.
Pardon?
The stations are where the topics you listed.
Correct. So that's where you've got the general city administration, parks and recreation, public safety, community development, housing, economic development.
That's by city department,
It's close to every department. Matt, there's an infrastructure and utilities construction projects, and then there is a transportation and traffic TDM station are 2 separate ones, but they're next to each other. But yes.
And there's poster boards and information
Yes,
and all
there'll be
kinds of stuff.
poster boards behind everyone with this, and I believe that this was in your packet.
Public safety in there?
Yes, in the notes that I had sent you guys on the 18th. Each info station will have a section about our role, recent accomplishments / milestones, current upcoming conversations and projects, how to get involved in this sort of topic area, a reality check section, which is here is a sentiment that we hear a lot, and here's the reality of that sentiment. So one might be, recycling doesn't get recycled. Well, your pay-as-you-throw recycling gets processed in Denver, your recycle center gets processed in Eagle. The less contaminants you have, the higher quality that recycling is, and articulating the reality check of whatever that sentiment is. Or for Parks and Recreation, we need another blank enter facility here. We would love to do that, but we have to balance all these different needs, and it's all the things that we hear all the time at different stations.
And we're allowed to engage, right? But we have the experts with us at each station.
Yeah, your subject matter experts are with you. I think it's likely that there might be something where something rises of here's how we have discussed this as a council. But let your subject matter experts help lead in those conversations. But of course you're able to engage.
This is very helpful to me, to kind of understand better the mechanics. And one thing I like about the mechanics is this tour group, assigned tour group approach. Because there's often a tendency at charrettes or whatever these are, people to just glom onto the topic they think they care about, and they don't learn or input on the other 6 topics. So now we're gonna take us together to go to the other topics and learn new things. I think that's a very clever technique.
Steve, do you want to hold a flag?
Follow me.
So
How do we learn what the other 6 groups say?
I think that part of the mechanics is after this is when we'll of course debrief as a staff, and then we'll probably take our staff insights and then look for a work session or time for you guys all to interact on, like, what did you hear from State of the City? And I mean, we don't know what we're gonna learn. It's the first time we're innovating.
Challenging the status quo.
We're
There you go.
challenging,
Right, do you have 7 grease boards? That you could have one at each station to write down those things that rise up that maybe surprise everyone?
so there will be, I hadn't thought of like a separate like whiteboard situation. I know that Mortgage does have like whiteboards on the walls that we could definitely accommodate for some of that. There will be QR codes that like people throughout, whether it is something that like, because we also know that there are people who are maybe shy, who don't like want to ask a question or share a comment, so you can use that QR code for that. And then there will also be paper comment drop boxes around the room, but we could also do whiteboards around the room as well. There aren't great like whiteboard stands, but I'd be happy to look.
Or similar to that, are the station professionals, would you be taking notes? How, if not whiteboards, how otherwise do the comments get captured?
How we memorialize what's going on.
Yeah, so the follow-through accountability aspect where those people who do engage know that their issue was recorded and everybody can keep a list of those issues and say, have we done this one, have we addressed this one, and then be able to feedback, this is what we did about that question.
I think
If
many
we
of us
want-
will be taking notes.
If we want engagement, we gotta be able to show that the engagement is taken seriously and working, right?
Yeah, I would ask, like, would this group be interested in like your own pod? I'm seeing head shaking from Marco. I mean, I don't wanna speak for staff, but I feel like most staff would probably have a notepad to take the questions that they're getting, and then as well, you'll have the written of like people who want to write comments. There'll be the written for the QR code, and if we want to encourage people to more utilize those written methods, then we could do that.
Yeah, I'll bring my business cards, people can email us, can reach out, you know, a lot of times you have like you take it all in and then like questions and comments and thoughts rise to the surface in retrospect, so I think having that available where people can reach out after the event. It might even be nice to have like a list of the attendees and maybe we do a follow-up and maybe we take like, if we get 100 and there's 7 of us, maybe we take, 20 people and send them a quick note and follow up, just to make that connection. If they took the time to show up to this, maybe we do a little personal follow-up and just select them on.
I hear this comment and I like where I think this is important where your head is at, is how are we taking notes? Because it's so easy to be like, wow, that was a great conversation. What happened? I can't remember.
Yeah.
So I like this thought of how do we memorialize it. I will talk to, I don't wanna obligate the rest of my team to something without talking to them about like what is the best way for all of us to accomplish this.
The other advantage, I think, to having a grease board or something is as the tours come around and the same question gets asked at the same station for the 7th time or the 5th time, and you've already got it up on the board, you can just say, yeah, we hear you on that one, and
I
go
think
on
that's
to
a great
something
idea.
else.
I think that's a great idea.
I think Aaron's
the walls
idea
are made
too
out of
of-
whiteboard and mortgage commons, so I will figure out how to make that happen.
If we can grab people's email address and just say,
And
get
we'll,
back to everybody that came with a mass, with
yeah,
the, we appreciate your coming, here's what we heard, here's a list of all the different things, and, then, like you say, then people go, well, there was a reason for me to come, and it was,
yes, and we're definitely capturing emails as people RSVP, and then people will sign when they get there. When they get there, everyone will get their name tag so that, as you're walking around the room, you get people's name tags. And then they'll get their packet, which they will also be able to have printed copies of the boards that are there so that they can be writing themselves notes, and they'll be who are you gonna call? So who was that person that I talked to? He was very tall. He had very tall, wide shoulders, was talking to me about construction. Who was that guy? So they know how to get a hold of Matt later.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that follow-up with kind of like all the contacts on it.
So now that you kind of told us what we could do, what don't you want us to do? Where don't you want us to go?
I would encourage you to stay with your pods. To add some whimsy and some authority, we have a cowbell that we're gonna ring-a-ling to get people to advance on. We're not gonna force people to move to a different station though. They're like, I'm really all in on talking about ride Glenwood on demand. We're not gonna drag someone to the next station. We're gonna encourage people to kind of stay with their groups. So there's a lot to see and explore.
Cowbell, so we're not gonna use signs, we're gonna use marionettes.
But if you don't force that movement, doesn't that mess up your whole flow of 7 groups moving to 7 stations?
Most people.
Shouldn't we?
Most people will go.
Yeah.
If anyone attended so part of this, stealing from one of our really successful engagements, the vacation rental VRBO open house, if you went to that one where it was we're all in the room together and you kind of circulate around the different stations, it's kind of pulling from that idea. And I think that at that one, we had a couple people kind of stick around some similar stations, but most people wanted, because there's a lot to see, so most people.
Okay, excellent. There'd be more instruction, I assume, in email at some point, or some sort of
I think referring to the email that I sent you guys on the 18th is a good place to know sort of what the structure will be.
Okay.
Day of, the presentations and everything will start at 5:30 pretty promptly, because we have a lot to get through. So would love to have you there by 5:15 if I could, just so we have that last 15 minutes to game day. We don't know how many people are gonna be there, so I'm hoping that I'm completely overwhelmed by 200 people and it's way too many people and not enough food. That would be a great problem to have. But that will give us an opportunity to be all right, we think every counselor has about this many people, and breaking things up.
Okay, great.
Probably a good opportunity for us to go to all the people that bitched to us about things in various emails and just go back to them and say, this is really a great place to come.
Yep.
So Bree, I haven't paid close enough attention to all your ads. I've seen them, I've posted it, I've seen Facebook and in the paper. Is there as we're getting closer, is there some other hook that might get people interested in coming other than, hey, we're having this open house?
Free drinks.
I mean, there will be free food and stuff. I haven't asked or told Steve about it, but an idea that has come up is free movie and popcorn for any kiddos who come. And so that is an idea that I haven't figured out how I would staff it yet.
You couldn't say come sign recall petitions or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that I've been trying to, in addition to all of our standard things, have been trying to send individual invitations to as many partners as we can as well. So trying to get the word
It'll
out
work.
as we can.
It'll work out. Okay, any other questions? State of city, no? Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Tim. Let's move into the cameras, the flock cameras.
Good afternoon. Smaller thing. Policy update. This is our current policy. I'll explain it.
It was in our packet.
Okay.
That's when
I don't have it.
that's when I went looking on the website and saying, oh, gosh, well, this is there, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Definitely a shortcoming on our end.
Thank you.
You guys can see this already.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not, here's the page, and then that's all that.
Oh, maybe it was in the message from Carl.
Yeah, it was an
That's what it
attachment, it
was.
was an attachment.
That's where it is.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry, I know the actual, that's reading something, I was separate.
I knew I couldn't find it, that's why I was like.
It's just, I've been trained that way. When an attorney sends me something, I read it.
After the 15th page of the case law, I decided it was enough of this.
All right, let's go. Okay, I don't know where John's starting or I'm starting. As you know, City has a contract with Block. Copy of that contract and links out to the terms and conditions were in the packet. Cameras are,
We have 21 total cameras, 19 fixed Compton cameras which do nothing but read license plates and report criminal activity. And then we have 2 what are called Condor units. They are pan, tilt, zoom, live cameras that record 2 intersections that we try to focus on mostly for accidents and or other criminal activity that we can access.
and my understanding is those 2, the Flock Live cameras, we're switching over to different cameras in the course of the next couple of months.
Yeah, about 6 months ago, we decided that we could probably use our own resources to have those cameras in place for a much better cost and not be stuck with a Flock contract for those specific reasons, because all they are is a live camera.
The 2 live ones, we're gonna switch over to in-house.
Yes.
Okay. And we have those capabilities. Okay. So just so you guys, you're familiar with the technology, if you have, if you are, I don't know what some of our block is, but if you're in the agency that those are your cameras, or you have shared access to those cameras with another agency, you can insert a license plate that you're looking for, or some other markings that would be that you could potentially capture related to a vehicle. We don't use any facial recognition software at all. We don't have cameras that do facial recognition or are capable of that. You input that information. If the system sees that license plate, it provides an alert regarding that, or an alert to another jurisdiction that we have shared that with. We currently share our cameras with law enforcement agencies from the state of Colorado. There's no federal sharing of any of those cameras. And as you saw in the materials that I sent out, just a link out to Block's website, they acknowledge that they're not currently, they have a program with DHS and NHSI that they have currently suspended, but to be perfectly honest, on the back end, we have no idea what Flock is doing with data or not doing with data beyond what their contractual relationship is with us. I think in everything that you've seen, including the comments from the public, our use of that technology, our department's use of that technology is really not the policy issue that communities are facing, and I'm sure you guys all kind of looked around on your own. Lots of communities are facing this issue because it is a very large network across the country, and I think there are definitely documented cases. You saw a lot of those. They occur in a lot of other places. If you look at it, you see very few, if any, documented in Colorado. That's just Colorado is a little different on that front, but it's a large nationwide network. It is I think one of the statistics is somewhere 60 to 70% of the U.S. is currently, I don't know what the right word is, I hate to use it under surveillance, but that's essentially what it is,
Right.
by Flock cameras, right? It's a company that was started in 2017-ish and has grown exponentially. And certainly there are larger policy questions around the use of that technology, but they're again focusing in on, you've seen what the policy is that our department has for the use of that, the audits that go on a regular basis. From our standpoint, I think we're pretty tight in our use of it. And I don't know that I don't think anybody is questioning that. I think the question for you guys all is that larger policy that was raised, those larger issues that were raised by some citizens, and how you feel about that. And that's certainly, from our standpoint, staff standpoint, that is fortunately why we sit on this side of the dais and you guys sit on that side of the dais.
on that policy question, because that's not our call. Happy to answer questions about how we use them, successes that we have had using the cameras over the years.
I would appreciate it if you brought that up, because I think that that's the other side. You can't really address how you feel about, the philosophical use of these without understanding the benefit.
Yeah, so if I could just touch base on a couple of things. So we started Flock in 2022. Prior to that, we had 2 other license plate camera readers that were installed by a company called LSAG, which Colorado Department of Transportation supported and paid for 2 cameras on the interstate. In a 1-year period, we had 1 success story of recovering a stolen vehicle from that, and we found it to be very clumsy. We gave us several misreads on a daily basis, and we were getting 20 hits a day, and they were short of garbage. It would be a license plate that would have 1 letter in it, and they'd say this could be the possible vehicle, and we research it, and it would not be that accurate vehicle. Flock is a company that started in the private sector, usually in HOAs, and they put them at the entrance and exit of their secured gated communities to know which cars are going in and out. That was something that was their bread and butter. Law enforcement got involved with it after that, and I think he said 2018, 2019, and it started to grow exponentially just by the technology that they use, that they could identify a plate with very good accuracy, and we had the ability to use what they call fingerprint identification, meaning if we knew there was a black Tahoe with a roof rack on it that was just involved in any number of crimes, and really that's the only reason why we use this is to solve crimes. No interest in tracking people, no interest in seeing what people are doing. We can't see their faces on the cameras, and people can come and say, well, how do you not know that? Well, we have access to Colorado Crime Information Center, the National Crime Information Center. We have access to probably at least 20 tools in our database that we can search and potentially do things criminally, do things we should not do. As law enforcement, we are sworn to do such and such, and if we get caught, we will lose access to all these systems. We will be criminally charged, and honestly, there are agencies that may have that happen. We do so many audits and so much training on this. I stand by our people that they have never done anything like this. If that ever does happen, we will take swift and appropriate action.
So basically what you're saying is even if we said, no, we don't like Flock, we're gonna get rid of it, it wouldn't eliminate the potential for misuse of public or private information.
Yeah, I think that,
So,
yeah.
So I think that just speaks to the integrity of the department and how highly you regard private information and the security around it.
So when you say you do audits, do you have a record of who logged in and looked at what at any time?
Every single time.
Yeah,
Who
really.
logged in, what time, the date,
And what they
did,
look for?
and what they look for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get a sense of that. I think one of the links that a community member sent out, if you followed those links, it kind of gave you what an audit trail looks like, because that's from open records requests that they've done on more of a broad basis. So you can see, and you saw in some of those, right? There are states, North Carolina, Texas, you see a lot of, searches being done on things that in Colorado we can't do, immigration being the big one, is that there are state laws that prevent us from doing immigration enforcement in Colorado, and so, that's not something we do. We don't, as the local agency, we don't share our cameras with any federal agencies. So, and there again, I can't speak to security on the back end for Flock. I can only speak to what we do and the rules that we are governed by. And I know when I looked over and saw on John's notes, and I'll just address it, I addressed it in my privilege memo as well. License plates in the Fourth Amendment. Long history of, and regardless of the technology that's being used, that your license plate is designed to be a public object and you don't have an expectation of privacy in kind of the exterior of your vehicle or in your license plate. I think there is, and that's part of the reason why we, Flock has technology, and there's technology coming out there with facial recognition and voice recognition and AI-driven surveillance systems that have not been opined on by the courts yet. Those are not technologies that we are deploying in Glenwood or have any, plans to deploy in Glenwood. These are strictly licensed bookkeepers.
And as to Carl's credit, I think he's talking about the, this has been, has standing in the 9th, 10th, and 11th circuit courts, which if you're not familiar with what the map looks like, the US here, this is your 9th, 10th, and the 11th. So it's quite a few states that have ruled on there is no expectation of privacy on the exterior vehicle in the public roadway, as well as the Commonwealth of Virginia has ruled on that.
And obviously, all those records that we analyze or whatever or can search for, those are not subject to quorum.
If the investigation is complete, it's potentially those would be subject to
Then
quorum.
it becomes
right?
public record.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's the same everywhere.
That's the same everywhere. Well, depends on the state law, right?
Let's just say Colorado.
Colorado, absolutely. And, and frankly, we are seeing more of that. I mean, people are asking for those records because they're trying to understand how law enforcement is using it. And I think that is an absolutely valid concern that the public has about how these tools are being used and when they're being deployed and what kinds of things are being searched for and why. And there again, I think it's really, you can take a look at that policy. We're very specific in additionally calling out as compared to some jurisdictions that I've looked at their policies, and calling out that state law prohibits certain types of searches. I mean, we try very hard to be right inside the guardrails with our department.
Since we're speaking of record, maybe you guys can jump. I'm just, how long do we keep them?
Records, data is kept for 30 days, and it's purged. It's purged from the entire system. We have no access to it. Flock has no access to it.
30 days, so if somebody does a core request about something that happened 60 days ago, there's nothing.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Do we know Flock purges like we do?
Well,
We know that?
I know that I can go in there and I can search for it. It is not there. They don't have access to anything, even in 30 days. If I were to call Flock and say, hey, I need to pull up a plate from whatever, they'd say, well, go into your system because we have no access to it.
Oh, they can't even look at it. They
Well,
just
I
collect
mean,
it.
and I want to be really careful about not representing what
Right.
Flock can or can't do.
Right.
Our contract with Flock doesn't allow them to access that data. We can only underneath our contract, we access it through our data port, or our portal. There again, like I don't want to be misconstrued. I don't want us to be misconstrued as defending Flock or opining on what it does or doesn't do,
Sure.
because we don't know.
Got it. So let's start with Steve and then go down to.
Yeah, I mean, they-
Specifically, we can't access any of your stuff.
Right. I mean, and you can look at what's on the website, and
Is that in writing in the contract by chance?
it was in your packet.
And it is in the contract also, yes.
Thank you, Ray. Let's start with Steve. Steve, Sumner, Ray.
I think initially I have one thought and two observations from my homework. One thought is that to me, this question in the 3 weeks we've been aware of it, didn't strike me initially, and even more as we go along, does not strike me at all that this is about the Glenwood Springs Police Department. I'm not concerned there. But doing my homework, reading through the comments that have come through the email from citizens, and reading from the very thorough background memo and analysis from staff, if there's a question, it's about the contractor and the contractor's behavior. If indeed, somehow, whether we allow it or not, the contractor is allowing information about our citizens or people who come here to other outfits that we would not ourselves oblige, that seems wrong. The portion of the contract that I read it right, has this kind of broad, the contractor shall share data only with agencies where it is legally obliged to do so, and we will decide whether that's the case. There's a lot of
Yeah, there was a lot of
flexibility.
leeway there.
They decide who they're gonna give it to. And That makes me very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, back to Glenwood Springs Police Department, just in the last couple of months, last 4 months, 3.5 months, the police department has showed us that they can operate cameras themselves really well. And we know that the two of them already operate, I don't know, this system already operates, now we have the new speed cameras to operate yourself. I'm really leaning toward, let's just get our own cameras and trust the police department to run them and leave the contractors out of the deal. Thank you.
Yeah, I comment
Oh,
on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information that's not super accurate there. So we as an agency have the ability to share with any agency that we choose. We have chosen not to share outside Colorado. We'll never share with the federal agency. We're a sanctuary state. We want to respect that, respect the citizens' privacy, and not allow those entities to access that. Now, Flock is a nationwide company, and they are a worldwide company, and they're going to have agencies in Texas and other states that are not sanctuary states, and they're going to share with HSI or FBI or DEA. And are they going to be used for some things that people may see as inappropriate? Possibly, but really the bottom line is we are trying to solve crimes. And prior to Flock, I can give you, I'm happy to give you whatever statistics about what it has done. And when it is mentioned that the benefit to these cameras is outweighed by the risk of it is wholly inaccurate. It is not, it doesn't begin to touch how much this benefits our department. This is a tool.
Benefits beyond what you could get if you operated your own cameras.
I wanted to, because the piece of this, along with the speed cameras, is you have to have the back-end software and capability to read and identify the license plates. It's one thing to have a camera, video camera, kind of your old style, like convenience store, we're filming. It's whatever appears on the camera appears on the camera. The piece that we don't have, that the LPRs, whatever company is providing them has, is that ability to identify the license plate and then connect it through a search to connect those two pieces for investigative purposes. And that's, you're right, we're really good at operating a static or a pan and tilt video camera.
Right.
We don't have the ability to do the LPR piece.
And if you're looking at the speed cameras are run by a contractor, right?
They are
That's
run by a
outside.
contractor.
So we're,
It's
the
a
city's
very
not.
narrow, like
Yeah.
their package is very narrow and
But
very different.
I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah.
That's not, the city's not running our speed cameras.
So John, as a segue to what you were responding to Steve, my question would be, you'd mentioned before Flock, you had a couple incidents, they were shaky reliability in terms of what data they give you. Since Flock, can you give us an indication of how it has helped you increase public safety in Glenwood?
Can. How much time you got?
How about a quick,
Yeah, just
Summary, 2 minutes.
just quick summary.
how about a quick one right now?
You know, let me just give a quick background. When I worked the streets, and even up until we had Flock, if you wanted to find a stolen car, you had to find a stolen car, like a needle in a haystack, and you'd be driving around, you'd see a red Camaro, and you'd run the plate, and if it hit, you found it. And we had maybe 2 or 3 of those a year. Since we've started with Flock, these cameras have helped us capture upwards of 60 stolen vehicles, murder suspects, robbery suspects, sex offenders, kidnapped kids out of North Carolina, felony suspects out of Pennsylvania. Just last 2 weeks ago, Avon has a system just like ours. They were able to work a case using Flock cameras between them and the Front Range of 4 of their jurisdictions to just resolve 20 of their vehicle break-ins, capture drugs, guns, and a homicide suspect. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I have a list of all the things that we have done with those. And I don't even know that you could put a price on those kids getting recovered from South Carolina that were kidnapped and sexually assaulted across the U.S.
And how, I mean, that's a great case for the technology and the interagency cooperation. Just without delving deep, how would you rate the increased in public safety to our residents versus, hey, we apprehended somebody who could be dangerous to our residents, they just ran from North Carolina, but how about our residents? How would you, just subjectively, how would you describe the increase in public safety for Glenwood since the use of the flock cameras?
Are you asking on like a percentage or a scale?
You tell me, yeah, like just in general, you come up with a.
I think-
Is it,
let me
all right,
try-
on a
let
one
me-
to,
yeah.
on a 1 to 10.
Let me try to
Wait,
okay, no, I was gonna try to help like frame the
Just
question.
forget it, if pre-flock, John, if pre-flock was a 0 in terms of helping Glenwood residents be safer, what 10 is
No
the
problem.
highest, where on a 1 to 10 would you put it, and just in your own subjective opinion?
My subjective opinion
Yeah.
is about an 8.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, so that goes to one of my questions. In the 2 years, how many actions by GSPD involved flock camera data collection?
Oh, I mean, we use it daily. We get a hit almost daily on either something that happened in the Front Range or something that happened in our jurisdiction. If we get a domestic violence that happens at 2:30 in the morning and the suspect leaves in a vehicle, we enter that vehicle, and typically within a day or two, we recover that person in that vehicle. So there's.
Yeah. I'm sure you have the actual data numbers somewhere. I don't want to put you on the spot for them now. It's significant though. I read through the contracts, and in section 5.3, it defines using the data for any legal process, that flock can use it for any legal process. So despite the differentiation between national and Colorado law and enforcement, there's that blanket, any legal process. From driving down the street being a legal process to the FBI asking for information regarding a legal process. So I'm agreeing with everybody else that the benefit to Glenwood probably outweighs the risk, but that data that goes beyond for things for information that none of us can even right now conceive of what reason it's for, is disturbing. And I think that's what everybody is concerned with, is the risk reward, and we don't know the risk.
I can say, just looking here, I see 8 smartphones sitting out on the tables.
Yeah.
And there have been hacks into Microsoft, into AT&T and Verizon and all that information. And we're talking about a vehicle description and license plate compared to all your information at Valley View that was hacked 8 months ago, and social security numbers and credit card numbers, and all this information got released. You can't say that it can't be breached. You can't say that there's information out there, but we are constantly feeding information into our phones about our lives, our personal lives. I don't see that those two even come close to being egregious or being questionable.
And most of us have no idea that tracking is going on and that information is out there.
Yeah, I would say, I think if I can, I think where we all, you're right about all of that information is out there all the time. I think to your point, Ray, I think the cases that make us uncomfortable about this particular technology as individuals are like when you see the use of it to track somebody who's trying to go from one state to the other for a medical procedure. And whether you agree with that or not, that's a pretty powerful use of the tool. And it's very specific to this kind of technology, which is, I think, what makes all of us uncomfortable with the way it could potentially be used. you know, because it's, as opposed to hacking your smartphone, you know, you can track your smartphone too. Everyone has a GPS tracker. It's telling everybody where you're at all the time if you want to follow that.
The COVID contact tracing should have
Should-
showed us
should have-
all of
yeah.
that.
Right, and so I think that's that, you know, you guys struggling, the community struggling with policy is about those potential uses of the technology. Because I think from the standpoint of, you know, the team here, it has provided a lot of benefit. It is very difficult how to weigh that on the national scale about what it means. And that's why I said it is so much easier to be in these chairs for John and I and Steve than it is to be in your chairs.
Well, I want to give Dave a chance quick, and then I think we should figure out what
I
we
have
need
one
to
more
do.
thing, but
Oh, of course, Aaron, then we'll figure out
So
where we're gonna go.
the piece that Steve and Ray brought up was the same thing I think that I saw going through the contract. Is there any way to one, I guess I have two questions in there. Can we modify our contract with them? Or is that standard language that they won't do business without? And then I guess I also have a question that in listening to Carl, you said about 3 different times that I can't guarantee what Flock is doing with this stuff. Is there other pieces out there that Flock is being challenged with nationwide where people are alleging that they're not using that data properly? Because
Yeah, I mean, I think that,
those are kind of two
so,
places to start.
I have, probably done about a half dozen Flock contracts over the last 5 years or so, because it's become a very, you know, it's a powerful tool, right? This disclosure language has been consistent throughout on the contract. It's been pretty consistent about wanting to keep it. It's a nationwide, it's the contract they use nationwide. It's the one that if you want to use their product, it's kind of like any other software license. If you want to use their product, it's the language you're going to agree to. I will say that there are other technologies that we use in law enforcement in various jurisdictions, some like body cameras, where the disclosure is only under court order versus, you know, determining whether in good faith it should be disclosed. And, you know, so different companies deal with it differently, but it's kind of the boilerplate. As far as challenges to Flock, I think there are a number of cases going on. I didn't track them all down. Flock's being challenged on a number of incidents that they've had. They have had a couple of data breaches. They've had a couple of third-party installs where they configured improperly. I will say that from my perspective, I think the largest risk with Flock is their new deployed technology, voice, you know, the voice monitoring, facial recognition, video cameras. I think that's delving into a really uncomfortable area for me legally on Fourth Amendment and privacy issues. License plates are pretty well settled. I think there is, not so much at the federal level, there have been some state cases that have found Flock to violate the Fourth Amendment, not out of the 10th Circuit, which happens to be where we're at, and that's why I included that one north. A couple of reasons I included that case. One is because it did a good job with the analysis. 2, it also gave you a really typical example of how it's used. That's why I included that in the memo for me. You know, the concern about the use is that it becomes like this large dragnet effect, right? Which is one of those areas where it's unsettled law. Can I be really honest with you? The Supreme Court would never find the use of technology like this to violate the Fourth Amendment. I can almost guarantee you that. They're super aggressive on not protecting privacy rights in the same way that maybe we have seen previously, and especially the use of the Fourth Amendment. I think the most recent case with Kavanaugh stops now kind of gives you an indication of where this U.S. Supreme Court is going, so for whatever that's worth. Long-winded way of saying, I don't think we can change the disclosure paragraph and get something different just for us. I would, as I noted in the privileged memo I gave you, their website and their disclosure paragraph are slightly different now on what they'll do. My feeling is if you really want to commit to that, you should probably change the contracts. The other one is that, lost my train of thought. Sorry, so I haven't seen anything that would directly affect us in Colorado as far as ongoing lawsuits or current lawsuits. I will say that there are a number of jurisdictions that have pulled back from contracts in Colorado, and you guys probably have, doing your own research, saw that as well. So,
Okay, so, other stuff, now, what does it leave us? Oh, Aaron had something else, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned that in that.
Yeah, for me, this is all about where that data goes and how it's being used. I have, personally, I'm very pessimistic about the country and where we're headed right now. And I do not trust this administration or the Supreme Court to not take advantage in every way technology like this to further their agenda. And John, I'm sorry, but I would move at some point to defund, if that's our only recourse. Defund this particular line item. Perhaps, with eventual change in politics, new technologies, some competitor to flock, because they're really the only game in town right now.
They're not.
Axon is.
Axon,
At that level though, right?
No,
I
there's,
didn't see any competitors to flock. But I did not-
Axon has a very similar system. LSEG has a very similar system.
Maybe
There's
some
another company
So
that,
that speaks, that was.
Some competitive pressures maybe will help assuage some of that concern, but it has nothing to do with how the successes locally and what we're doing locally and how we're using it and all of those things. It's strictly about choosing to be or not be a part of the broader data collection engine that's potentially fueling a lot of bad things.
So that was kind of gonna be my question, I'm guessing that our information is kept on a server somewhere, and if another agency that we have permission with, that we collaborate with, is seeking some information, does it need to be in that greater nationwide network, or can it be something more locally held? Like, would there be another smaller, like one of the organizations that you just mentioned, that does things more regionally or, at a smaller scale that maybe would have a different level of security?
well, it's not necessarily another clearinghouse, but we can restrict our use to Western Slope. We can restrict it to Glenwood Springs and Silton, Newcastle, and Sheriff's Office. We have that ability to share.
So I know that we have that ability internally. I think what I'm hearing is the concern from the community and from even in this room is that we do own that data, but in theory we don't, because it's out there being managed by this very large entity that has relationships outside of our relationship that are problematic.
Well, that would be like any other cloud storage thing, Amazon, anything else that's large frame, that it goes to that area. Now, who you share that with, whether it's SharePoint, and I can only share with people within our agency, but it's still in a cloud that exists that
Now, I
can
hear
be
what you're
breached
saying,
by Russia or.
I've tried to turn my Siri off. I don't have an Alexa for that reason. I really hate that my stupid remote control for my TV, I can talk into it. We really don't have the anonymity that we believe we do. I just have to believe that I'm just not interesting and nobody really cares. And I feel a little bit like this data, it is just license plates. It's not, like you said, the other things. And so in my mind, I hate some of the things that are happening at a larger stage. I am involved in local leadership, local politics, because I feel like this is where I can make a difference. I think if we are very aware of how precious this information is to the people who live here, and treat it that way, and it sounds like the department has all those securities around it, I'm more comfortable with that, knowing that it's an asset, with the constant eye on, how this is being used, things as they evolve and come to light. But this has been something that, you said 4 years, for 4 years, this has been a presence in our community, and it's only recently risen to the level of concern. And I think that is because of national politics. And I don't want to have a reflexive response to something that is very useful because of things that are outside of our control.
If I could just respond to that, so we have tools on our
Right.
uniforms, we carry batons, we have radios, these are all tools that have been added over the years. When I started 30 years ago, we didn't have half of these, a taser, we didn't have Narcan, we didn't have any of these things. And removing a tool like Flock because of something that is happening throughout the nation is really stripping us of our ability to not necessarily do our jobs, but to be more efficient and more effective with our jobs and make victims of crimes be made whole sooner than not.
Yeah, and that's to my point, like, I feel like with the way that this is being used, unless there's a greater concern or something, I think that being responsible, being transparent, I like that there's an audit process out there, people can see exactly how it's being used. I think that should be reassuring.
Sumner and then Steve.
Yeah, my thought, I mean, it's more a question, and I agree with so much was said, and I like how Mitchell summarized the current environment, where you don't know what will happen regardless of your local intentions. And it's not going, but let's say, should we continue with the status quo with Flock? And I'm not hearing an action otherwise, but should we continue? Then my question would be, what would this council do should there be a known breach to the Colorado laws that we consider a relative safe haven? Would we pull the contract? Would we look for another provider? I guess the question would be, with it, and this vague contract that seems to allow an awful lot of latitude by Flock, should we continue it? If we choose to continue with Flock now, what would we do should that breach become known and verified?
It's a little late.
Right.
The cow's out of the barn.
Well, yes and no. We don't know how far out, we don't know, and yes. So do we not continue the contract so it doesn't get out? Or do we continue under an illusion of safety until we don't, I don't know that, but that's the question to me that needs to be answered.
Have you guys looked at the other contracts from the other providers? Is it similar? Is it the same? Are the one better than the other?
The Axon, their contract, and I've worked on theirs, not on their LPRs, but on their body cams, because it's a pretty common body cam system. They are similar with the exception that, at least in that context, they require court order to share the data. To Mitchell's point, I don't know how much that matters in the current environment. Right? Like I am less confident in contract provisions on things like this, including whether or not Copilot is using your data in Microsoft to teach its, it's not supposed to be using it to teach its learning program for AI. I don't know if that's really true, right? Like there is so much of this that it is really hard for me to say, yeah, I can draft a contract that says anything. I don't actually know what the impact of that is going to be. So they look a little different, at least in that context. But the effect, I don't know.
Steve?
Several of the questions I had got answered, thank you. One clarification and one possible idea. When I glibly said our police department knows how to operate speed cameras, yeah, we use contractors for the mechanics, but it remains our material, our information. It doesn't go onto a national network because somebody was speeding on it.
You think it doesn't?
I think it
I was gonna say, it's a similar thing, it's a similar data
But
collection.
the other thought is kind of building on what's already been discussed is what would it take to investigate alternatives? Either other contractors who might be less troublesome, if we're seeing this one as troublesome from a civil rights perspective, or other techniques for tapping national databases so you know about the kidnapped kids. But it's not because we're in the flow of this particular technology or this particular contract. Are there alternatives? I guess is the simplistic summary question.
Right.
Just be blunt, be blunt.
Yeah, so there is no other means to have a system that will help us locate a vehicle or a license plate without the use of a camera and NCIC, CCIC, which is our system that governs all the license plate information. There just isn't. I mean, and anyone that's going to try to compete with that is going to have the exact same hurdles and challenges that Flock has. Axon's going to go through the same process, I'm sure.
So FBI databases or other.
Well, it is an FBI database at CCIC. So it's all one and the same, and there's no way to communicate that other than having somewhere to capture that information to know that a vehicle has come through or a person's in that area, short of sharing GPS locations with cell phones. I mean, that might be an option. This is a huge federal process that would have to go through to do something like that.
And my companion question, which I think is my last one, because Carl raised it, if indeed the current contractor is now dabbling in other identity capture, voice, AI-based, again, is there a contractor that's not going down that trail?
Yeah, I mean, it is, I will tell you in the kind of that universe of surveillance, you know, the first person to get to, I can identify a code word being spoken in a public square and attach that to a face. You know, you, in a perfect world, it's because they're making a threat about domestic violence. That isn't necessarily, these are all tools that, this is the classic example of the tool doesn't know what it's doing, the tool is just the tool, right? It's the operators that are the issue. Everybody's trying to get to that point, right? Like that's the gold standard, right? Can you, how far can you push the surveillance technology to provide that granular level, and how many data centers do you need to run the AI, to run the algorithms, to find those things that you input into it, right? Like that's the next generation. And so yeah, Flock is doing that. I'm sure Axon is doing that. Everybody's trying to win the nuclear surveillance race, if you will. So I don't, you know, I think to John's point and to somebody else's point, the technology to do what this does, regardless of the provider, is going to have the same issue set. So really the question for you guys is how, you know, do you want to or not want to, and it's not here for you to decide, you're ultimately gonna have to, if you decide to take it up on the regular meeting on the dais, it's that larger policy question, right? Are you gonna participate in these kinds of networks or not here in town? Like that's the issue.
So we're running a little long on time in this, and I know we have more questions. So let's see if we wrap it up, and if we feel like we need to revisit, let's put it on another workshop. Maybe we can get more. I don't know what other information we can get, but maybe we have a chance to actually talk about it to see where this is gonna go.
Isn't this supposed to go till 5?
No, we
Nope,
got
no, 4:15.
climate action next, so we're 15 minutes behind. So I think Ray raised your hand, and I think Dave and Mitch.
So I can see where the technology of the flock cameras is very similar to tolling technology. And the issue again is the backroom stuff. And if everyone can relate to the old overhead gantry things that used to read your license plate to take a toll, now you don't even see that stuff. It's a small camera that gets it. This is the same kind of technology is going to advance with Flock. There are going to be a number of companies that have it, but for any of them to be effective, it's going to have the national connection, the information that is available to us from other Flock cameras. The importance of that, and from our perspective, is that Interstate 70 and Highway 82 are high traffic high traffic, high criminal activity traffic corridors. And some percentage of that traffic is gonna stop in Glenwood. Do we wanna be able to know about it? Do we wanna be able to be alerted to it? So that's the other side of the question of the bad things that can happen with it, are the good things that can happen and prevent bad things from happening. My next point was, do you feel like we have with Flock's policy change and your reference to that requiring an amendment to the contract? I see either that or somehow not appropriating the payment as being the only two ways of terminating the contract.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a non-appropriation for that. I included. That's the non-appropriations is the most standard. And honestly, I think at this point with Flock, we're $50,000 a year. They don't care, right? Whether we cancel, I don't think we would have a battle over
Over the legal terms.
over the $100,000 that we might owe for 2 years on the contract. Like I said, you're seeing a number of communities cancel the contracts, but you're also seeing probably an exponential number adding the technology as a key. So for all the reasons that John described, the department used.
And do we know if they're canceling their contract with Flock and going with a different provider, or
most
is it they're getting rid of the technology?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read, and this is one of those that I really encourage you guys. We didn't put a lot of stuff into the packet because we didn't want to give you the sensation that we were pushing one way or the other, because this is definitely something I think every individual needs to really do their own research on and become conversant in. From what I have looked at, most of them are making the choice to step away from the technology because they are uncomfortable writ large with the technology and its potential use right now. And so they're stepping back from it for their communities. So I think that's why I said I think the core of this question is that question, and my suggestion would be that maybe we want to come back and talk about it again. I think it's super important to the community, but I think you guys need to have time to really dig in on your own on those issues.
And then I was just gonna say, I think we need a second part to this, because we have the ladies here for the next item, and we're 20 minutes late, and I feel terrible about that. So, is it okay if we do this again next meeting as a workshop and continue?
Maybe also add it to the agenda for our next meeting session.
I'm not sure we're there yet, to be honest with you. I think we need more discussion, at least on my level. I would like to hear more, but now we kind of know what it is. I think now it's time for us to actually talk about what we think we should do.
That was my footnote, similar footnote. At some point, because we even took this out, because citizens alerted us to the questions, I think at some point having public comment opportunity would be useful.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. I'm just not sure. Well, we could put it on the agenda, and if we feel ready after the workshop, we can continue.
Yeah, I think if you put it on the agenda, people are going to want to show up and talk.
Right.
So that's fine.
But
As
you may
long
not
as
be,
you know what
I guess
we're
I
doing.
think what you're saying is you may not be ready to take action, but you're ready to take public comment.
I think it should be one and the same, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We should take public comment when we take action.
I
So
suggest it doesn't have to be the same meeting, you could have a workshop.
Right.
and then-
that's what I was looking forward to, is let's do another work session and kind of figure out how we feel and what we think we should be doing, and then put it on the agenda when we're ready to take public comment and make a decision.
I asked John just one real quick
Yeah,
question.
of course.
Can you put together for us, you said, okay, I've got these statistics, so can you get that something more detailed to us over what this has done for us over the last 4 years? Not like exact, but just, like Ray said, the one that really stands out to me were those 3 girls. And if we've got more things like that, where we're really doing things that are a stolen car is one thing that I would weigh against privacy and go, okay, I could maybe live with this, but if we've got 3 little girls that were being sexually abused and we stopped that, I mean, if there's other things like that this has picked up, I'd like to know kind of what we've picked up, where it falls in that kind of category of, man, I'm really glad we got it. We used it for this.
In like your packet?
Just any information, however it gets past that,
That'd
that would be great.
In a public packet, those statistics, obviously it won't have detailed information about
Exactly,
cases, but here's how many stolen cars, here's how many offenses against persons in the general categories that we Something like that.
Something like that, that just gives us an idea of what it's really done for us, because there's a difference between that top part of it, what it's done for us, and the bottom part of what it's done for us, I think.
And maybe add the competitors, so we can do a little research, those names that you guys mentioned, just so we can do a little bit of speed up. I'd like to move on, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to move on.
Yeah, I think the competitors is a fool's errand, because if it goes over the wires, it's liable to be hacked.
No matter what. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have, at least one, I have extensive questions on the climate package. Can we put it to a different meeting so we can get on with it?
Maybe if it's okay with the ladies, maybe we'll do a part one and a part two, can we do that too? Or is it, can you?
If needed, we just extended our contract through the end of the month, so.
Okay.
For 2025, I
Well, I
mean.
hate for them to be here, and we have 20 minutes, so I think we should hear what we can hear, right? Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Should we sit over
Sorry,
there?
please go right there if you could, yes, sorry about the delay.
That's all right. We'll see what we can fit in 20 minutes.
Awesome, thank you.
If needed, we can use your.
Thank you.
Share my screen.
At this point, you know everybody in the room and we know who you are, so are we good with that?
Sure.
Excellent.
Introductions. I think there are a couple of new council members since we last presented on this topic, but you'll get to hear more about it and meet us. I'm Morgan Hill. I'm the Associate Director at Clean Energy Economy for the region.
And I'm Christina Matzel. I'm the Data and Energy Analyst at Clear.
Thank you.
And this is essentially a report on the implementation progress of your energy climate action plan that was completed in 2024. So we were one of two consultants, Clear and Blue Strike Environmental, that worked on the original energy and climate action plan. And we are contracted for this year and have our contract in place to continue in 2026. So this year actually now, I meant by that 2025, and we'll be continuing in the coming year to do similar work in supporting, a lot of this is just reporting on your implementation progress at the city. And providing some high-level recommendations just based on the work that we did mostly with city staff. And we'll talk a little bit about the greenhouse gas emissions inventory update. So when we talk about, if we use the word update, it's not an update to the plan, there's no changes to the plan. It's just an update on the progress and implementation.
So the first portion of this is the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So to start off, we just wanted to highlight a couple key attributes of the city and municipal operations. So these are all pieces that were taken into consideration in the emissions. 19 buildings, 18,000 tons of municipal solid waste disposed in the landfill, 199 fleet vehicles and equipment, 32 is what we calculated as the average estimated employee commute mileage, and then almost 10,000 population served by the water treatment operations.
Is that mileage a day, or what is that?
Daily.
Round trip.
Round trip. And so you're gonna have people who are less and possibly people who are more. We used a calculation software for that. So there's a margin of error, and if there's any insight we can get into getting more accurate, we're open to that too. So that's what we used for the calculations here. So this is the breakdown of the emissions for the municipal operations, facilities fleet. The biggest portion is your vehicle fleet, so that is gasoline and diesel fuel. And then your facilities, which is pretty darn big. This portion of the solid waste facility and equipment is the buildings up at the landfill, and then their equipment, so any diesel fuel that they use for the equipment up at the landfill. This does not include the waste that goes into it. If you recall, in the original energy action plan, there was a couple different charts, and one showed the municipal solid waste as being almost the whole pie chart, and that took in kind of legacy emissions from the waste disposed. So for this, we felt like it would be more relevant to just focus on actual operations. We'll note also that, as I'm sure you know, the landfill completed a methane study, and so we're going to be able to take that into consideration when we update the emissions inventory again this year.
I wanted to ask clarifying questions as we go, or should we be quiet and let you finish?
It kind of depends on with our time constraints, what would be the most productive.
I think we should get through the presentation
Okay.
possibly, and then if we have to do questions some other time, maybe we'll invite you guys back on the 5th, if that's okay.
And I should note too that you see the note at the bottom says 2024 data. So the original greenhouse gas emissions inventory that we worked with Blue Stripe to do was for 2023. So obviously we're in 2026 now, but often it takes about this long to analyze this data and obviously get it presented to you all.
And this was completed earlier in the year. Yeah, so between that, this shows the change in your emissions. Most of the emissions in each of these categories went down a little bit. Just solid waste went up a small amount, and then water and wastewater treatment processes. And so that is basically the nitrogen effluent that's coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, and some facility operations. So it's a very small portion, but it went up a small amount. And then we wanted to highlight the impact of the renewables here. So City of Glenwood Springs has the contract with MEAN to provide 100% renewable electricity. So that top bar is your emissions, as it is with 100% renewable electricity in your buildings. Most of the facility emissions are from natural gas. And then the comparison is that bottom bar with using a regional emissions factor. If we had calculated your emissions using standard calculations, it would have been much higher. And then in the original energy action plan, one of the pieces to looking at forecasting and measuring progress is that the city wanted to look at these as a science-based target. So this projected line that goes all the way down to the bottom to 0 at 2050 is this science-based target. And so what we've done with the upper lines is measure progress. The real light line up at the top was the emissions from the original report, and their projections going down is business as usual and nothing happened and nothing changed. And so then the darker line is where we're at now with the reductions that were achieved and how that would look projected out with business as usual.
So the Energy and Climate Action Plan was only for your municipal operations versus citywide. And those of you who have heard us present on this before, there certainly is overlap. When we talk about the landfill, obviously it's waste from the city, surrounding areas. There are action steps and strategies that relate to the rebate and incentive programs through the electric utility and the water efficiency programs that the city operates that are related to residents and businesses. So it's intended to be for municipal operations, but just know kind of when you see this that we recognize there's a bit of a gray area.
Bless you.
So there are 5 focus areas for the ECAP. One is energy. This is on-site renewable energy, what's called peak shaving, which is essentially using battery storage to, as well as working with electric customers to reduce the peak demands in electric use. And electricity demand management, so very similar. Buildings, this is really looking at your municipal facilities and energy efficiency and electrification in those, but also relates to building and planning and energy codes, in addition to, again, what I mentioned about residential energy efficiency and commercial building energy efficiency programs. Transportation includes fleets, EV charging stations that the city might operate. And then we also look at employee commute, and that's related to public transportation and the Ride Glenwood and Ride Glenwood on Demand, which Ride Glenwood on Demand didn't exist when we put this plan together. So in one way, it's an action step you get to check off even though it wasn't there in the beginning. Waste management, we were talking about landfill emissions, and so this is attempting to address emissions from stored and incoming waste and reducing that waste, and we have some great successes to report there. And then parks and natural systems is irrigation and water use at parks and natural systems, the tools and equipment that the teams use in the parks, and then green space and landscaping. So this is a really high-level overview of the implementation progress so far. We've got a little bit more specifics on the next slide, but I want to highlight that there is a lot of really good information in the full document that was included in your packet. Just very long, and even if we, had our full time, we wouldn't want to cover all of those with you. So really encourage you to go and read those. City staff have made notes on the progress of all of those action steps. And we've made a couple notes too where we had input or updates. And so yeah, great information there to get more specifics on all of these and what's been done so far. So you can see that progress has been made in terms of the number of action steps that are in progress. Waste management has several action steps that are complete. And a lot of these are big long-term tasks, so we wouldn't necessarily expect that you would have checked a lot of these boxes off. And in fact, some of them I would say are kind of worded where they're not necessarily something you complete, it's just something you continue to work on and build as your city operations. So you can see that there are some that are not started, and we've got some examples of what you could choose to focus on in the next year based on what our matrix that we developed has identified. And one thing I'll note too, in terms of a difference between the implementation and the action steps and strategies that you see in what we developed versus the original plan that was adopted in 2024, is we felt it would be important and helpful to break out ratings for each action step, whereas Blue Strike only rated those for the broad strategies, and we felt like there's actually a lot to say kind of within the strategies. So just if you notice kind of the difference between those two, that was a step that we took this year that we think will be helpful moving forward. This is a breakdown of the broader goals of the Energy Action Plan under these focus areas. So it was essentially focus areas, goals, strategies, and action steps. And in some cases, there's only one strategy per goal or one action step per strategy. And some there are more like 6 or 7. So when you're looking at these percentages, some of them have a lot to encompass there. You can see reducing employee commute emissions, for example, has a lot of steps, some that are in progress and some that could be considered over the coming years. And then some action steps where you're making great progress, or some goals. So energy conservation and energy efficiency efforts. This is for residential and commercial buildings in the community. Again, we've got a lot of great progress being made with landfill and some with city land and green space as well. And of course, we have your staff here if you have more specific questions related to those. When we developed this implementation metric, we looked at 4 different criteria areas and filled them out kind of as we knew as clean energy economy for the region staff, but then also relied heavily on Glenwood Springs staff to make sure that those fit the priorities as well as the knowledge that they know of the departments and programs that they manage. So this looked at its projected greenhouse gas emissions reduction potential, how much it would cost to implement, the required additional resources, so what the city doesn't maybe already have, we need to bring in, And then weighted pretty heavily was also city staff prioritization for those action steps. And again, this is, everything we present here is not a strict timeline. It's intended to guide actions that could deliver the greatest impact potentially at lower cost early on. And so this table doesn't show exactly, it doesn't show correlating action steps, but you can see how this, we and city staff are able to toggle between low, medium, high priority to get to some of the priority action steps. So these action step recommendations are, we develop these basically by looking at what the plan identified as the start year of either 2025 or 2026, which you'll see some notes in all of the breakdown of action steps. City staff have some had recommendations where that start year needed to be moved. So we've adjusted some of those as well. But this is where we saw that there's a priority score of 1 based on the matrix I just showed here previously for greatest impact at maybe the lowest cost, and then a high priority for the city. And then ones that hadn't been started and had a start year of 2026. So each category has some action steps. This is not a very long table. And again, I think there's a lot of great information in the full report that we included. So the first one would be for buildings. This is develop an energy conservation culture program for staff to encourage energy savings. This is your facilities as the city. And we, this is great because we already have a program through Garfield Clean Energy where we're tracking the city's energy use in your buildings and providing recommendations to facility managers and continually working with them on this program. So the conservation culture really is the next step of working with all of your staff who are using the buildings to make sure that they are also kind of part of the effort to reduce that energy use, in addition to what we're already doing, working with the facility managers. And then also with that, provide staff training on energy efficiency best practices. And then another program that CLEAR supports through a contract is to ensure that low-income residents have access to energy efficiency programs. And this has not started, but I think we could probably say that that is actually in progress because we continue to offer those rebates, and really the city does through CLEAR and our outreach. And we do have low-income programs. You have low-income programs that support Re-Energize, which is listed here, but continues to be a priority and something that we identified. Again, these are just what we found in the matrix, and the city can identify other priorities in the action plan moving forward. Transportation had promoting the existing van pooling program and potential interest for expansion. Working on expanding employee awareness and potentially uptake of RAFTA discounts and bus passes. Some of these are, it's interesting working with, we're looking at the action steps that are related to electrification of Ride Glenwood. There's this is the life cycle cost analysis, and then there's another action step down the line that is actually more implementing electrification of the Ride Glenwood fleet. So this is really would require coordination with RAFTA, as I understand you contract with to operate that service. Another is to evaluate the use of police officer bike and e-bike patrols, develop education materials, and employ further enforcement of the city's anti-idling policy, which I believe is vehicles idling for 10 minutes or less. 5, okay. And then waste management, require on-site aggregate recycling for commercial and industrial construction and roadwork projects. And then just consideration, not to actually implement, consider bans on the retail sale and use of select single-use plastics. And then for parks and natural systems, Rod could weigh in on this one a little bit more, but transition from use of chemicals in city green spaces to more regenerative practices. And with that, we actually don't have, I know we're getting close to 5 o'clock, we don't have any other slides to show, but we're happy to talk more about some of the findings of the implementation report and any more specifics. Although I will say a lot of that probably goes more towards staff than us because they were doing a lot of the implementation.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's do questions and comments and see we got, if you guys promise me to get dinner in 5 minutes, we can hang on for another 10 and get this on the way here. So Who wants to go? Sumner first and then Steve.
Sure. One observation we won't have time to talk about tonight, it seems like we still have kind of the elephant in the room is our massive emissions from the landfill. So how do we deal with that? And this is rhetorical versus kind of these targeted other things that not only cost money, but have way less impact. And that's rhetorical, okay? But my more practical one is I'm very interested in both the politics, economics, and implementation of single-use plastics. Do you have a list of communities that have legally been successful with this, and at what level they banned which plastics?
Yeah, there's probably more from this, yeah.
At the retail level?
So Sumner, I can put that together for you.
I think that would
Because
be.
I have a lot of that information already, and I can put you together, a good summary of
If
who's
it's
done
all-
what and how it's going.
If it's all ready and our city manager allows you that latitude, I'd love to see that.
I can do that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Steve?
Thanks. Again, anticipating that you might not get through at least my questions, let alone the rest of them. And I hope that we can continue this if we don't get done tonight. Some generalized procedural things. In your dashboard portion of the report of the document slideshow, you attach percentages to accomplishments. Percentage of what?
So we're looking at the total action steps, and then there's a calculation breaking out the difference in the completed steps or the steps that are in progress.
So you got 8 steps and you did 2 and started on a third.
And there's still a couple more, yeah.
So it's not necessarily 38% of the total
Towards
goal, is
completion.
38% of the action steps. Okay, great, thanks. In another portion, which I think was in your implementation progress portion, there's a bunch of labels that say either start year not until 2027 or recommend change start date to something. Who's making that decision?
That's through all, so that's in the greater matrix that would be in your packet or in the report.
I didn't see it, that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
The-
So those are taken from
Some
notes
of
from
the
staff.
original report items
Mhm.
said, get it done, started by a certain date, get it done by a certain date. Is this different from that? And is it indeed an update to change the calendar?
Yeah, so I think, again, I said at the beginning that this isn't an update to the plan, because that kind of means something a little bit more official than what we're talking about, but it is based on notes mainly from city staff, who said, because of other priorities, or, they can speak more to this, that we recommend a start year of 2027, and that wouldn't be technically an update to the plan, but it's just based on input that we've received.
So, but if this ends up in a document that looks kind of durable for the year 2026, this is now the deal? And some combination of contractor and staff have made that decision?
I mean, I would say none of it is the city has adopted the plan, but none of it is binding, and staff can say.
Just be the deal, because things change and they move, so you're gonna have to give us a little bit of latitude to kind of flex to that as we go, but this is why we're doing updates for you guys.
Thank you. Kind of related, in your recommendations for accomplishments, I think that's the label, action step recommendations that you just summarized, or you just went over in detail, actually. Is that recommendations for things to accomplish, that is complete in 2026?
Well, a lot of them aren't necessarily, again, that you would complete them. I guess you could say if you looked at providing staff training on energy efficiency best practices, you would implement the training in 2026, but then the true implementation of that would continue on as staff in the future, continue to do that. So it truly is just the start year. And again, these are just purely based on looking at the matrix, what came up, staff can, or, you know, council and looking through this and come up with other priorities. But we wanted to give you something in terms of what we looked through that was things that you could look at in the coming year.
Kind of a other side of the coin of that same question. Do these action step recommendations for 2026, some to be completed, some to just start something, imply that nothing will be done on the other action steps during 2026?
Not at all. Yeah, if there's, and again, I think there's a lot more specifics in the full report that would show many other action steps that are identified to be started in 2026, 2027, and some that, you know, again, might be cost, I don't know, this is just how we develop this matrix, but there might be more cost effective, more important, higher priority action steps that could be completed.
Thank you. Two questions on particular, what you call them, categories?
Focus areas, maybe?
Focus areas. Just there's a question about the landfill. If I understand what you're proceeding right, when the report says that there's been a 13% increase in landfill emissions, that's just for the bulldozers and the buildings?
Correct.
Not for the pile?
Not for the pile.
Good, thank you. Meanwhile, if I understood the mid-year conversation about this, there's still some question about actual methane release from the pile, in that it was originally based on modeling. And it may be that we're not actually, it maybe isn't the biggest thing in the world. It may not be because of our active diversionary policies. Maybe our pile is not as methane emitting as the first report suggested.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So Steve, it's still very significant. So we did actually do testing over the summer. And basically, in a nutshell, our methane emissions from the landfill that were measured in that testing are about 1,000 metric tons per year, which is still very significant. Now, it gets a little complicated because we are, based on that testing, we are well below the federal threshold for what they consider viable for a gas collection system, a gas collection and destruction system. However, the state is maybe implementing new rules to where they want these smaller emissions landfills to try to do gas collection systems. There is still some question about whether that's actually viable that we need to talk to our engineers about. So, but we're kind of on the borderline to where a gas collection may be viable or may not be.
And that would be the only solution to
Well, it would be
addressing the 1,000 metric tons.
It would be a tool that could reduce it. There's no actual solution. It can't go away.
And am I correct in the kind of side comment I made that because of all your diversionary work, composting, construction materials, yard waste ban, active recycling, those are techniques to reduce at least the increase in methane from the pile?
Yeah, absolutely. And the more we divert, the more it will, the more will be reduced from what it potentially could have been.
And those are action steps in the plan as well. Something you get to check off and say you did it. Implemented pay as you throw and.
Yeah. And I guess I'll note too, some of that increase is also composting that increase. So compost does have methane emissions as well, but it's far less than if it would contribute to the whole landfill. So increasing compost emissions is a little bit of an increase, but that's good. That means there's more.
Great, thanks. In the buildings portion of the report, one of the red exclamation marks, red X's
We debated at length about the icons, but
Yeah. As useful as possible.
Was training in use of the International Energy Conservation Code, Development Code, on-bill financing for heat pumps and things like that. There were things about what we were doing that could have effects on buildings in the community, as you mentioned, different from our own buildings. Things like encouraging heat pumps, things like full implementation of the IECC development code, progress on citywide energy efficiency in the built environment that was mentioned in your dashboard. What's the holdup? Why are we making no progress on those particular ones?
that one was, this support energy efficiency citywide for new development and existing built environment.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I do know that the city.
That and the IEC training, both of them got red X's.
Yeah. You know, I would say that's more up to city staff to clarify. You have adopted the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. And, you know, I think that one actually could be the way that it was rated, where you have adopted the code, staff are issuing building permits based on that code. So it could be something related to like more larger scale implementation. I don't, Trent, you could weigh in on this one.
Yeah, so is it, I didn't want to put you on the hot spot necessarily, but.
No, that's okay.
Are we actually doing better than a red X
Well-
in the code, and when you review an application, you're using it?
Yes, yeah, we're currently utilizing the 2021 IECC alongside of the 2020 NEC, National Electric Code. We have exceptions to our code that state that all projects are electric ready, so that, you know, they can be converted either which way at any given time. There are options to go electric preferred or electric required. I will say that there's litigation out there on the national level, you know, in various states and organizations where that's being challenged. So, my preference would be to allow those communities to fight that fight, and we figure out which direction it's going to go before we enter into that type of litigation. But it's certainly a path we could take.
I know it's all just required, just put it required so we can see how they do. Thank you.
Hey, Steve.
Yes,
Can I
sir.
interrupt you just quickly? Who else has questions?
I have a comment, that's all.
Okay.
It's short.
All right, keep going.
I think I have.
We got 4
I think
minutes.
One, maybe two questions. Rapid discounts for city employees as part of the commuter transformation. That's one of the things you recommend we get after in 2026. Did we put that in the budget?
It's in the budget. Yeah.
To have enough money to pay for rapid access for these.
Yes, that's
Okay, great, thank you. There's an item that's not on your 2026 priorities, but in the transportation portion that talks about increasing lighting for bicycle and pedestrian areas. I just put more on ourselves to coordinate that carefully with the lighting ordinance update that city staff and P&Z are already taking on, so that we don't go out and put a bunch of overly bright lights where they don't need to be. And then the last comment I think I have for the moment, sorry, 2 more, and then I think it's it, then I think I'm there. There's an item under waste management labeled 1.2.1. Mandatory food waste diversion for commercial operations for restaurants. Did we start on that during the alleys project? Did we make any progress on that during the alleys rebuilding project?
No, so a quick update is the only thing we did towards that is we did a voluntary program, 2023, 2024. Very little uptake. So the next step, if council wants to move forward with that item, the next step would be council passing an ordinance to require that.
Okay, so the requiring of food waste diversion was in the climate plan, but we haven't actually,
We have not
Made it
passed an
law.
ordinance to
Okay.
make that law, no.
great, thanks. And then maybe similarly, mandatory commercial apartment recycling. I think we have done that.
That'd be
But
one of
there
those green check boxes, yeah.
But there's a notation in there somewhere that is enforced on a case-by-case basis based on complaints. That's just kind of like sidewalk shoveling or?
Yes. So, and I would encourage any of the council members who hear complaints from their constituents about not having recycling, if they live in multifamily housing, to forward those to me or Matt, and then we can look into them.
Mountain Waste and Waste Management are quite aware of it, and they have been moving that direction, but we are not going out actively looking to see if they have cans. But they've been communicating back and forth, so they are moving forward in that process.
So that would be through those companies rather than our pay-as-you-throw contract.
Correct, because commercial's not in pay-as-you-throw.
Thank you.
Thank you, great.
It was a pretty big contributor was the employee commute, and it was based on some assumptions. I would suggest that Lee and Jacob can give you some pretty, much closer than a calculated guess data to use for that number, see if it shrinks or grows. And it'll also give us a tool to measure how much how much our affordable housing efforts have contributed to reducing that number.
Great, thanks.
Excellent, any other questions or comments? See none, well, thank you very much for being here, sorry again about the delay. We got through it, so thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Guys, let's do dinner really quick, and then we'll sit right back down.
Sorry, one last question for next steps.
Yeah.
We do this again in a year or sooner than that?
I would think so.
You know, last year, in 2025, we did a mid-year presentation, so that could be an option if that's true.
Sure, absolutely, talk to Steve, we'll get it scheduled.
I'd love to hear sooner than a year from now.
Here's what he's asking.
You'd love to hear sooner than a year, that rhymes, we'll remember that. All right, thanks, Zach. You got it.
You do work.
paper, and I just kind of want to go over what each one is. So the top paper is what we've got in QuickBooks. Cindy put together, she works with me on the finances, so you guys can review that. And we're going to kind of go over that a little bit. The second handout is our 3-year operational cost breakdown. So we have been in contact with Yampa Gardens in Botanical Gardens in Steamboat and Montrose Botanical Gardens. And we have their financial statements. And we basically reviewed theirs, and then from there we kind of came up with our own. And so you'll see that we've done some comparisons here, and then we broke it down for cost of what we think our operational costs are going to be. The third handout is our operational funding plan for the first 3 years. So this is our hope on how we're going to pay for the operational expenses. And then this next one is this memorandum. So Jennifer, who's the director at the Yampa Botanical Gardens, she wrote this specifically for you all. We've been talking with her a lot, and we asked her if she could share some of her long-term operating and funding models. So she put this together for you guys to review how they do theirs. And then the next one with the charts, I just wanted to share, this is the Montrose financials. So you can review that. And then the last page is the Steamboat Yampa financials. So you can take a look at those as well. If you guys wanted, you could go more in depth. Again, I apologize. We have meetings to go to, but we wanted to print these out for you guys to just take your time and review on that.
More in depth than this.
Well,
Go through item by item if you will, but it'll be good if you guys wanted to go through it.
We were told at our meeting with Marco and Steve last week that this number 4 item on the work session was gonna be a kind of the area that you guys might be most interested in, is the financial aspect. So we did our due diligence, that's why you've got all this. We've been working really hard these past couple days to get you all this information. Obviously, it would be difficult for you to look at it all right now and have any questions, but in general, do you want to have a little update with where we're at since the last time that we saw you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This is last minute. Not a fan of last minute. I wish we would have had that ready to review when we got the packet. It's a lot to look at right now. If you guys could also summarize this really quick and tell us what each paper tells us and give us total numbers, that would be really helpful. Besides the update you're going to tell us.
Yeah, I can do that real quick. So basically what we're looking at for the first year, and I don't know if it's more clear on the profit and loss budget. Cindy, did you want to go over this one? It kind of breaks it down a little more, but no?
Hard to do quickly, I suppose, like most financial statements, but it's that first sheet with the 3-year summary is just projected sources of income and expenses, and it's kind of a compilation of, as Chrissy was saying earlier, what we've gleaned from the Yampa and Montrose Gardens, and also just from our own reaching out to providers.
Yeah, and if you look on the 3-year operational cost breakdown, the very last page, it basically breaks down. So year 1, we're expecting about $59,000. Year 2, $60,500. Year 3, $67,000 for operational costs.
could ask questions, or do you want us to?
Yeah, I think we should engage and ask questions.
Are those numbers with the greenhouse, without the greenhouse?
So these are just operational. We've presented the startup costs, which I think we sent at one point our presentation to you all. So the greenhouse has the operational costs as part of it, and that's listed.
This is really more regarded as cost.
This is, yeah, so once we get it up and running, this is what it's gonna cost to kind of run it year after year.
Is there an inherent request in here? Like the grants, is that city grant, is that coming from somewhere else? Like, is there a way for us to read this and think about how the town, how the cities, how you're expecting us to support you guys?
So we have a list of grants that we're going to be applying for, and endowments as well. Some of those are listed on one of the PowerPoints that we have sent you, but since then we have added a lengthy list to it. We have applied for one, however, I think people are hesitant to give us grants when we don't have land yet. So we're kind of holding on that. We are basically kind of building our portfolio. Tomorrow we have a meeting with the American Gardens Association CEO, and she plans on writing us basically a recommendation letter, so we can include that in our grants as well. So we're trying to build some of that to get grants, because it is challenging right now to get anything right now without a set piece of land.
Is your current assumption that the city might be then like a gap funder?
We have not
Or you're not expecting anything from us?
that in. There is some negotiations that we can
We don't wanna say no, in case it's like, something.
How many
that,
millions?
We did want to discuss
discuss
maybe water and utility
Yeah.
services, things that the city would provide to their city property anyway. Right now, I think the lease is, or at least a memorandum of agreement with that property is what's holding us back.
Maybe there might be some stuff from the DDA. I think we kind of talked to Jillian a little bit about that. So
I think the good thing with the botanical gardens is there is a lot of funding that, you have to be on the ball and you have to be applying for it. We apply yearly for these things, and, last year it was just a little, we didn't, this year we just have so much more momentum moving forward to really explain in those grants that we're doing.
And then we can apply for some historical and educational grants as well.
So I see that there's no cost under utility and land use. So Steamboat and Montrose, they don't pay for any of it?
they're both city-owned properties. So they,
City-owned properties, and then city pays for the water and city pays for the electricity as their contribution to the gardens?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense now, because I don't even know what a water bill would be.
And keep in mind, even though it's a botanical garden, there's so many great ways of being water conscious.
Right.
We're gonna make sure that this garden is, super up to date with, not just being wasteful.
And we're pursuing irrigation water from the river.
Yeah, well, we might be able to. So again, we know that there's a lot of information, we're trying to just continue to do our due diligence whenever there's a question that, that you're presenting to us, that we're, trying to get, a lot of this has to be from other established gardens in the surrounding areas, and we're so appreciative that they're just willing to give us all their information. We're a little overwhelmed with how much information they're giving us, but then we also want to share that with you because it might help to answer some of your questions that you have. Okay, thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a question, and this would be for probably Steve or Matt, Matt, this is the way you've worked them out.
Good.
As far as doing kind of raw water irrigation from the river and supporting them with electrical and things like that, is there precedent for that? I know there's others, like the community center, for example. They're billed, for their electrical usage, but then is it just kind of like a wash? And then how does that work?
Do you mean the garden at the community center?
So, or just the facility itself, like the other two, so it's city-owned and operated buildings and facilities, like it'll be track of like, so you can tell us if we're,
Yes,
is it filled, is it just kind of a wash,
they
like?
pay utilities like everybody
That's
else.
what I thought,
Yep.
that's what I thought, so this would have to be some sort of like a grant at the end of the year for a budget thing, or how does that work? Or
I mean-
do I just like worry about you figuring it out?
No, what we would say is that when this gets in and gets put into place, they would pay utilities like everybody else.
Got it.
So just as a quick update, while you're still taking some bites of food, we had an amazing meeting with SGM, and they have signed on board to help us out with amazing structural, what's the word again?
They're gonna do 3D imaging, a whole survey of the exterior and interior of the building for us, and then spit out and Revit so we can have a 3D model. We're gonna work on elevation certificate, red area concerns, floodplain concerns, so they have signed on to cover all of that at no expense to us. It's our phase one.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that, we were very excited. Yeah.
And then they offered, when it's time to reconstruct the greenhouse, to assist with engineering, foundations and drainage, but, we're gonna look at that with them again when we get there. Yeah, that's really great.
Are they also assisting in the botanical gardens themselves, the layout and the site work?
Yeah, I
Can help
gave
with
you down the front,
drainage.
we're very focused right now on just this greenhouse, saving the greenhouse, that's kind of, we understand that there's two parts, there's the garden, there's the greenhouse, but just the greenhouse has more of this time limit that we have to get on that, and we're just trying really hard to, and you can help us out with this maybe, is, we wanna be answering the questions before all of a sudden there's a construction date, and then we haven't, Tate Civil, is, working with us, and he brought up some amazing questions last night at our meeting, the permits and stuff like that we're like, yeah, we wanna have these discussions before the construction date is set, so that, we're not floundering at the last minute. So again, the greenhouse is our main priority, but then obviously continuing to move forward with the gardens and the land.
Have you gotten some sort of a deadline and timeline from Canyon, whatever it's called?
So I had updated them, I sent an email about a week and a half ago, just giving them an update about where we were, that we were, moving on track, that we had this meeting scheduled. I have not heard back from them. My last conversation was in person after the last city council meeting, and then a couple of emails, and, they're on board with what we're doing, they're supporting us. The developer had mentioned that he was gonna be meeting with his contractor, thought there might be an opportunity for their contractor to actually dismantle the greenhouse, because his contractor did have some experience with a historical situation on another property. So I asked for a follow-up on that and not responded. But I also recognize on the developer's end that sometimes they can't really give out much information until certain things have happened. But to the best of my knowledge, they're still moving forward with closing, I think he said probably mid-February, so he hasn't advised anything.
Have you heard anything, Steve? I mean, again, the further they push it off is a win-win for us, it gives us more time to just get everything. So we're glad that it didn't happen in November, which is
In
the
that
first
regard,
thing.
finding the deadline or due date, as you called it. Am I still following correctly that there might be two variations of that? There is a deadline for saving the building before apartments get built. Perhaps a different kind of timeline where it ends up, and whether it ends up in the gardens.
The immediate concern is saving the greenhouse from demolition.
So when you talk about SGM figuring out how it might look in the gardens,
That's not this phase.
that's for future possibility.
It's dismantling it because it's historic, like preserving it.
Getting it into storage or off or whatever is still an option without hanging up the whole garden front.
And SGM is aware that our next step, they understand that we're looking at things in phases. Dismantling is the first one, having it stored somewhere until we're able to actually reconstruct it, and then a botanical garden. So they're aware of our whole plan of what it is that we're doing. So they're providing us their information in phases as well.
Is your whole concept, does it interact or intertwine at all with our Parks Department, or is it everything totally separate?
This would be separate. That's our understanding is what the preference is of the city. We're not a park. They want us to be sustainable on our own, not being covered and paid for by the city. So that's what our intent is here, is to provide this information. We understand, acknowledge, and recognize that there is, no matter what you do, some responsibility that the city will have for anything that would be located on land that is owned by the city. So we recognize that, and that is not an unusual situation. That's exactly the way it works with Steamboat and Montrose. So we're looking at that under the same type of an umbrella. And prepared information, how the garden themselves could be sustainable regardless of what happens.
Thanks.
When do you guys expect to give us the big ask? When is that decision point anticipated?
Once the majority of the questions that were in the most recent staff memo are answered, I would hope that you would consider either a memorandum or a lease or designating that property as a park.
Okay. Is that?
The sooner the better.
Is that?
Yeah, we're ready, we just are,
Yeah.
we're trying to move it, we're
fundraising.
Is that like literally could be the next meeting, or do we, I'm not anticipating, I just wanna know.
But yeah, let's go through a couple more questions and then maybe Carl can help us with next steps.
What this process looks like.
Land use and lease and all that kind of stuff. Right.
Well, yeah, the big ask is going to be to use the property.
It is.
And I think that requires some serious advance work by council, based on what I've read about the Confluence Development Plan that was done years ago, that I don't know if it carries any weight anymore.
It doesn't carry no weight.
I suspect it's going to require citizen input for what happens at the confluence, what part of it. So it's something that we really need to get going on in the event that this happens, because
it's a process here.
Yeah.
But who's responsible for the process? Right? We can make a decision once we have the information, but is it up to us to do the public input and all that? Since it's our land, how do we structure it from here on? Yeah, I was gonna say, is Trent here?
Yes.
Yeah, he's right there we go.
I mean, I think what it feels like from my standpoint, it's like any other time you have a landowner, who might, do a landowner consent. Let me back up. If you guys wanted to identify an area where you were willing to have this go, even before we get to the point of the lease, I think we probably want to go through a development review process. Typically, that would look like with any other developer. The city as a landowner, you might consent to having them run that application. And certainly you have some input about what that application would look like, but you're also sitting, and the planning commission is sitting as the review authority on that. That gives you that kind of public process to work through. We'll be short a commissioner on that review. So I think I would run that public process to see where you got to before I really define the parameters of the lease, or do them in parallel, just because, if the outgrowth of that public process is a no, or is significant opposition to it, I don't think you guys want to be in a position where you said, yes, you can do this, but now you can't, right? With the lease agreement. Does that feel kind of right to you on process?
Yes, sure, on process. And I've kind of, spoken to this group about that and said, I'm happy to provide any guidance or help that I can, but we kind of need some direction from city council for us to help and to lead and move down that path. I don't know if Ray was kind of asking more of, we have this confluence plan that's been, on the shelf for a while. Is there need to be a public process or discussion about should we move in this direction? Is that the question, or?
That was part of the question, yes, and I think part of that question is how much that confluence plan was a much bigger area than I think we're talking about for this garden. So I think we need to start winnowing down, where is this greenhouse gonna go? Can it go there? Do we want it to go there? And does that require a public process in light of the thinking that's gone into the confluence development previously?
And does it require a public process that is larger than just the planning and zoning application? Very complex.
And I think we have to do some winnowing first to be able to answer that
Right, I
question.
mean, the confidence plan has been sitting on that shelf for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, from the standpoint, and part of the reason it's on the shelf is that I think that some of what was in there, we ultimately found, I think the public wasn't super supportive, especially on the interaction with the river.
Right.
So I think, you know, probably a starting point, let's identify the where and how much. And then I think maybe Trent and I can work on like, okay, what is the process for what's being proposed? What processes that run through? I think that's, you know, that's the planning commission, that's the review process. What public process you guys want to do, I think is part of determining that how and how much, and how do you want to take input on that?
It's a political question.
Yeah, it's you need to have that political question. We can help on the technical, legal review side, but that political question is really you guys and how do you want to have that conversation with the community around politics.
The recent election we had was regarding sale of city property, not leasing of city property, right?
Yes.
So we're not required to go before the community in terms of
Not
leasing.
required to have a referendum.
Right, we're not required to have a
Doesn't
vote.
indicate.
I think what we're talking about is the decision by council. I mean, this is a significant decision on a permanent installation. You know, aside from the planning commission process, what other kind of public political process should they go through?
So over and above the development.
Development review process.
So
Because that would provide public input at a planning and zoning hearing.
correct, but I'm thinking, so is this a bad idea to add this to the state of the city as a little corner side thing? Hey, this is coming, it's exposure, all I'm saying is it's exposure, and you guys can take a, I know, I'm looking at Bree also.
Bree's like, no
You
way.
guys tell me what you want.
Here's a wrench.
Right?
Is this a bad idea?
Have we internally even determined
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
how much acreage and whether we do we want to encourage, how much encouragement do we want to give before we do our part?
Well, this is a good time, we got some time left. How do you guys feel we should move forward so we can get somewhere?
Can I ask a quick question real quick before we go there? Is the city willing to assume the carrying cost of water and utilities?
Does
Because that looks pretty, when I saw the amount of money the operation, I was like, well, that seems really low. And so I think
Is that
that's,
ultimately up to us?
Well, so look, I mean, we're still early in the process. This is an incredibly big lift. I mean, to the credit of the people that are sitting here, they've done a lot of work.
Right.
They're gonna have to do a lot more work. My understanding has been that this is a volunteer type of project. I think they know that they're gonna have to involve some professionals along the way and stuff. And when you look at some of these budgets, I mean, I haven't gone and looked at this particular guy. I think there's $500,000 of expenses in the budget, right? So we've got a ways to go. The question is, that I think you asked is, you know, is the city gonna provide water, electric, that kind of stuff? My answer to that is that right now, we're not planning to do that like we would anybody else. They're gonna lease the property.
Right.
And then we will service the property like any other property owner we would have. Having said that, you know, if we wanna help with some contributions and that kind of stuff, fine, but our parks department doesn't have the capacity to maintain this.
okay, so that was my understanding, so I wanted to clarify that because I feel like it sounds like not having an MOU is definitely holding you back from like really being able to plan this, but I think that we can't do the MOU until we fully have a fleshed out, you know, cost analysis that is realistic, that, you know, everybody can get behind. And so that's why I was like, you know, talking about like the size and all the things, I was like, I think we're putting the cart before the horse still.
And when you say MOU, what we're really talking about is a commitment to lease this property for, you know, a significant period of time, probably 20 years or more, right? I mean, we can't really mobilize all the resources that this is gonna take unless they know that it's gonna be there for a number of years.
Yeah.
So this is a big lift that we're talking
It is, and I was curious about, your, the Montrose Botanical Gardens and their operation cost is really low, but how long has that been in operation?
40 years?
Yeah,
It's
so
30
30
years.
years, so I think that does impact, it's so fully established, it kind of, and it has an element of running itself at that point, and so.
And they're not year-round usually, they're shut down for the winter, so
Is that your land too?
Winter, year round.
Yeah,
but there won't be irrigation.
What's that word mean?
Got it.
Winter, is that?
Well, Ray first, I think, and then Steve.
Were you? He's a great waiter, right? Like, just tagged you right when you took the bite.
The posters that I've seen that you have up around town are impressive. I think a good way of getting the word out that what they're considering is placing one of those pictures on a portion of that confluence property where we're thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, we would love to do that.
And I guess that's why I would question, at least in terms of moving forward, would council want to authorize this group to develop very conceptual site plans so you can see the acreage and the potential impacts, and to lead maybe a public outreach effort to gauge the feelings of the community?
Well, we have already had those meetings.
Well,
I mean,
Yeah.
a little more
Yeah, I was
formal.
gonna say,
I think your question, Trent, is council opposed to going forward with that process? And since, and I don't know, my opinion, from my perspective is, it's a great way to get the word out and get people thinking about it and talking about it. We haven't made any decisions yet, because we don't know enough yet to make a decision.
right.
I mean, relay it to a private developer. If a private developer spends a certain amount of money developing an idea to be able to present it visually to convey the message, right? Doesn't necessarily mean anything is ever gonna come of it.
Right. And then at some point, I think we would have to say, okay, now council's out of this conversation because you are actually reviewing a development.
The legal side of that, I guess, yeah, we need some guidance on.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of get it to Trent's point. If you guys, and to your point, Ray, if there isn't an objection to developing that conceptual site plan, so that you have an idea as the property owner, kind of like scope and impact on the property that you own. And I think if you guys are okay with that, and we'll see, where that fits in the public process, then you're gonna need to step out, because you're gonna need to come back in as a regulatory authority at that point. And that application is gonna have to run like any application runs, right? And come in front of you on the planning commission.
I guess then, I'm sorry, Steve, I guess then following that thought, then we really ought to be very conscious about how we progress, where we get. And when everybody knows that council's out now, you're not talking to us anymore other than to give us information, because it's now a formal process that.
Steve. I think that all answered my question. The suggestion that there be a land use application process, and land use review process. Who's the applicant?
The applicant is we are the landowner, we would, underneath the code, we need to provide our consent to them filing that land use application. We see a lot of applications
That's allowed.
That's allowed, absolutely.
You don't own.
Yeah, about half the land use applications you will ever see in your career on council are owned, the land is owned by somebody else who has it under contract, if you will.
Yes.
Sort of like
Right.
the Canyon Vista.
Yeah, great example, thank you.
My other thought to your question, having heard Brianna's very thorough and still evolving description of the community
State of the city?
meeting, community state, I would say no, not have a table for this, because I just sat here and I can think of 6 more very enthusiastic community projects that would want space. And we don't have to invite them, but I don't see, I think I like the categorical setup for that particular event, not bringing in individual projects.
Don't mix it. Okay. Someone and David.
If we choose to go forward, I do like our formal land use processes, both handling public input and application and keeping us at arm's length once we decide. I have some thoughts related to what Ray said. I don't think there is a confluence plan anymore. This thing has been dormant for so long with so many pros and cons and changes. Can't relocate this building and we got another use over here we didn't anticipate. So one of my questions would be, this council might be making a decision for land use for 20 years on a portion of the confluence. Are we comfortable with doing that? And what are we not, is there something we're not anticipating for the use of that land that we should be? That's rhetorical, I don't know the answer, but those are things I think we should decide before we go, okay, yeah, we haven't seen this kind of community support, we haven't seen this kind of energy, we haven't seen a use that makes more sense, then let's do it. But that's, to me, what we have to ponder before we go to the land use process.
But what you just said is that you think the land use process, and all pointing and trying, the land use process is good enough for you?
It is for me.
For the public to have input and for the public to learn what is actually going on?
Yes, to me it is.
Okay.
Without creating endless.
Right. Another
gratuitous stuff.
Got it.
And is that, sorry if I'm interrupting you, but just to kind of catch that train of thought, is whether there is a confluence plan that's relevant or not, is the future of the confluence still a concern, and how do you put that into the mix for a proposal on a portion of it?
Well, I think that's ultimately the decision that we're gonna have to
we decide.
So that would be.
Separate and apart from the land use.
That would be our decision before it even goes to land use.
So do that sooner than later.
I would, yes.
And I think that's probably to me, that's the valid piece, because it's a piece of land. It's not just a piece of land. It's a vital piece of land to that downtown, if anything ever wants to be done with the confluence whatsoever. If we tie this up, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but if we tie this up, we've done it for a long period, and so we're really hog-tying anybody in the future that says, okay, we want to do something. So I think we need to look at that really carefully, make sure that's where the community really wants to go with it. Not saying that we should take the confluence plan, blow it off, and go, okay, let's do something with that or do something, but we're looking at something that's got a pretty long future, and it could be a really good thing. But we want to be certain that we're stewarding that land properly, because it's a pretty unique piece of land as to how everything could flow with Two Rivers Park, with park systems that's there, with commercial, with everything that might happen with downtown, DDA. I mean, all those pieces, I think are more than just like, God, it would be great to have a garden here with the, I think it's discussion is well worth having it in a little bit, in some pretty good detail before we commit ourselves.
I agree with that, but at some point, like Sumner said, we haven't seen another group pushing hard like they did, and it's like Steve said, it's a heavy lift, but I think it's worth the lift in the end. We haven't seen anybody else come forward. We haven't seen a push on the confluence from anybody for the last decade, maybe.
It's wasteland now.
And
wasteland.
At some point, yeah, you're right, we have to look at it, but at some point I think it's really just, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna commit this land for 20 years because we think, from what we learned, that's the best use of it at this point. And having a piece of open space, if you will, on the other side of the berm, I think will satisfy a lot of concerned citizens to what the confluence could have been.
I think,
And it's not.
to Marco's point, the
Yeah.
recent community sentiment has advocated for more parkland, more open space. This is a way that we can, as a municipality, help provide that without taking on additional responsibilities by partnering with another organization. So, initially as this concept was like in its infancy, that was the appeal. So I don't know that we will get a lot of community opposition. That doesn't mean that you don't put it out there and look for it. It's just based on just like the anecdotal feedback that we've got recently. I think it is a pretty fair assumption that this will be well received.
I think like, you know, in the needs assessment with Parks and Rec that we were was part of, and then the comprehensive plan, everything came back that the public wanted more open space and, you know, so this is why this whole idea, these people on this side of the table know this is what we've been talking about for years, is that, you know, we were trying to work as a park and recreation thing, and then I was tasked with moving forward to try to find this, what we've created here, so we're trying our best to help you do.
There's a connectivity component that I think is really valuable. And so, you know, some of my questions that I can reach out like kind of separately with some other questions, but some of what I was gonna raise is, I just really wanna make sure that there's like a good eye on long-term viability before like hearts get broken, right? And so that's where I just wanna add some more questions, so I'll just reach out to you offline on that.
Sorry, Ray, just real quick, but to follow up on this, when you do your budget, when you do your expenses, when you do whatever, you should assume the worst. Assume the highest cost possible. I have no idea how you would calculate water. Maybe Matt can help you. Electricity. Assume the absolute worst. Trash, whatever you got. Put all those utilities in, and that's your number. And if everything else is volunteer, then that's great. You're gonna save a ton of money, but get everything in there that costs money. And it's great if it costs less. It's terrible if it costs more, right? We all know that, we'll be in the business. So I would like to see that update of a 4-acre, all-in expenses botanical gardens for Glenwood Springs.
You know, for instance, like in your installation, you've got materials, but you're gonna need equipment rental to like care that, you know, like there are things in there in that initial kind of first year cost that I think are gaps that.
You're talking startup cost, not operating
I'm
cost.
talking operating.
In your year one, yeah, in your year one, when you're talking about, you've got some materials in there, but you don't have, you know, the things, a volunteer in a shovel isn't probably gonna be able to get the job done, so there's like some costs that are in there in that year one that I think are being unaccounted for.
And most likely, your first 3 years are gonna be more expensive than the rest of them. So just kinda get it all on the page. And then I think we have Ray and Steve.
Can I just, one follow-up with Eric?
Yeah.
Just, if you put something like that out, if that information on the longevity, if that information can come back to all of us instead of just back to you, because otherwise I'm gonna have the same exact questions.
No gatekeeping over here, I will make sure I share everything I can.
Yeah. Right?
Number one, if the confluence plan that was done and has been sitting on the shelf for so long doesn't exist, then let's get it off our website.
Right. There's a number of plans we need to talk about, you're right.
Number two, I believe without having thought through all of the legal process stuff, Carl, that we need, as the public needs, kind of a picture of what we're talking about here. And they need that to put real numbers to it. If we can get that far without having committed anybody to anything, or think they're committed, that we've committed to anything, it'll best serve everybody's interests.
So before, we got just a few minutes left. And I know you guys still have questions, but what I want to do before we part ways is I want to send them on their way with clear direction, what we want next time. Because we may not have too many more times to do this before they do the formal land use, but from what I hear, just a second, from what I hear, you want to see a site plan. You may want to see a rendering of what it's going to look like.
At least
right?
conceptually.
At least a concept, right, a conceptual something.
We have kind of done this, it's on the website. I mean,
I would love it if we could see it when we come.
oh, the website, yeah, it's been posted for a couple months.
Right.
So I gave you those logo stickers, yeah.
Yeah, and then we want to see the updated expense. And, okay, Steve, and then I think we should talk quick if we're even okay with the concept on those 4 acres on that lot. So they feel somewhat okay moving forward.
I need to see it.
Excellent sequence, because to that point that I raised my hand, building on Councilor's caution about tying up a piece of land for a long time, it's a subset of something bigger. But in any case, tying up a piece of land. Council's going to be asked to give a sense of approval enough to warrant going through a land use process, we could say. That is the reason, one of the reasons I keep asking about the distinction between a garden and a greenhouse. I'm not sure that at this stage, because of all the unknowns about floodplain maps, about financing, structural integrity, that we should make anything that sounds like a commitment to a structure there. I'd like to see conceptual plans. I'd like to see how this sounds to others. My intention is to see conceptual plans for a garden and how many acres that is. And that would be what would go through the land use planning process.
Without the greenhouse, is that what you're saying?
Because I think the greenhouse is a separate question. We don't even know if it can be done.
I think that's up to them.
No, it's up to the people.
It's up to them to apply, to build that conceptual plan however they want to build it.
It may be how they want to build it. I for one,
You have to just react to the
would
information.
not give a
you get.
nod to the two, but certainly to the one.
Can I separate that issue? My understanding of what you need is to know you have a place to store it is gonna be the first thing. And that's a commitment I think that we can make, is to provide some space to store it. I thought it was 2 semi-loads to begin with. I've heard differently since then. So we need to quantify that, but I think we could give that authorization while everything else is in limbo and going through the process. So that they can commit to taking the greenhouse.
I think we can probably find a place to put it, which I do agree is kind of the real timing that we've got. We do need to turn this room over for to start on time. So can we invite them back, Marco, when they're ready to come back and talk a little bit more budget and concept?
Is that okay for you guys? I know you guys are a little apprehensive of doing the plan, but if you can give us a full-blown concept of what it's gonna look like on that site. And then the full-blown budget of this is our expenses.
It can be a first draft. You know it.
Yeah.
It would be a draft of,
Not excited.